the zombie emperor in American comics. Hello again, dear adventurers of the multiverse. Thanks for joining us once more on this epic journey. Remember, this story is pure science fiction from our wild imagination, so don't go trying to summon dragons in your backyard. The rights of this amazing novel belong entirely to its original author. We are only the narrators. Do you want more adventures? Show some love to our YouTube channel with a subscription and a like, and if you want exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting for you with open arms. Chapter 76 Alice's Determination. Are you all alright? Wang Yunxiao took the blade of the god of war and casually stored it in his personal space. Without even glancing at Isaac, who had been cut in two, he addressed Rain and Alice with concern, especially Alice, who was still clutching her head as she stood up. It's okay. He's not even as strong as that William, Rain said with a slight curl of her lips. She had expected Isaac to be powerful, ready for a good fight. Since she had fully mastered her powers and mastered telekinesis, she had never truly faced a formidable foe. Clearly, she was disappointed. I'm fine too, thank you, Alice nodded gratefully. As she spoke, she subtly glanced at Isaac's horrific death, a flicker of lingering fear in her eyes. If it weren't for Wang Yunxiao and Rain, she would have been in real danger today. Alice's thoughts were indeed correct. In the original novel, she narrowly escaped death at Isaac's hands. Later, without the White Queen's covert assistance, she wouldn't have been able to lure Isaac into the laser tunnel and use it to kill him. At that moment, Alice's clone stood up and approached, staring directly at her. She opened her mouth, unsure of what to say. Having just awakened, she was already apprehensive about everything around her, and the first thing she saw was a look-alike. Are you okay, Alice? Momentarily unsure how to face the clone, could only ask dryly. Wang Yunxiao and Lane exchanged a glance. They didn't know how to persuade the two women in this situation, so they decided to step away and give them more space. They also decided to see if there was anything valuable in this lab to take back for Charles to study. Oh my god, these. As they reached the deepest part of the lab, they were stunned by what they saw, and Lane couldn't help but exclaim. Inside a vast experimental chamber, neatly arranged rows of circular nutrient pods filled with Alice's still unawakened clones were revealed. Tramp, 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 footsteps echoed as Alice and her clones approached, equally astonished by the sheer number of clones. It was unclear how they managed to communicate so quickly. Perhaps there was a natural trust between them, perhaps because they didn't have much in-depth communication. For a moment, none of the four spoke, staring blankly at the unawakened clones. The atmosphere grew extremely oppressive. After an unknown amount of time, Alice suddenly turned and walked over to a computer, her hands clacking away at the keyboard. The next moment, a scene appeared on the monitor. It was a spacious conference room, where Umbrella executives were discussing something. They said, all communication from the North American base has been cut off. How long has it been? 17 hours. We have reason to believe they've been completely lost, but the plan must remain unchanged. Transfer all data to the Tokyo base and continue research under our supervision. Also, we can't let things go on at the Chicago base any longer. We must take action. Wang Yunxiao is involved in this incident. Wang Yunxiao, who had also walked over to the monitor, heard this and silently said, "Here I come," but didn't take it too seriously. Everyone, there's no need to look for me anymore. I'm already on my way to you. And I'll bring many friends with me. Alice typed in another command, and her image appeared in the conference room, gazing at everyone present with a sneer. The Umbrella executives were surprised by Alice's sudden appearance, their expressions varying. Before they could say anything, Alice cut off the call. Alice was truly furious. So many clones, what else could they be used for besides testing? The thought was terrifying. If this base had so many, what about the others? Lane sighed softly, looking at Alice's expressionless face. She offered no words of comfort, but a sense of empathy welled up within her. Anyone faced with such a situation would likely be no better off than Alice. But how could she have known that Umbrella not only had clones of Alice, but also had numerous clones of herself, perhaps even more? Wang Yunxiao was well aware of this, but he wouldn't bring it up, delaying it for as long as possible. That Chicago base they just mentioned, Alice regained some composure at this point, remembering what the Umbrella executives had mentioned, and quickly shifted her attention to Wang Yunxiao and Lane. That's right. The Chicago base is under our control, Wang Yunxiao didn't hold back, immediately recounting the entire incident. Of course, he didn't mention the fact that Alice was also a clone, merely briefly explaining Alicia's background and attitude. Is that serum really there? Alice's face flickered with excitement. She was primarily concerned with the super serum Wang Yunxiao had mentioned, the one that could spread through the air and wipe out all zombies. Yes. However, it's probably in Oswell's possession, but no one knows where he's hiding now. Wang Yunxiao nodded at first, then said with a touch of regret. I'll find him. Alice's eyes flashed with a cold glint, further solidifying her resolve to head for the Umbrella Corporation's Tokyo base. Not just there, but if possible, any other Umbrella bases as well. Sorry, I'm afraid we can't help you this time. We need to get back to Chicago as soon as possible. Wang Yunxiao saw what Alice was thinking, but he had no intention of joining her. He was already quite satisfied with the data he had gathered on the White Queen and Isaac's research. Moreover, Wang Yunxiao knew very well that Alice's trip might be able to destroy Umbrella's Tokyo base and deal them a certain blow, but it would not bring them any substantial harm, let alone force Oswell out as they wished. Lane did not say much. Although she and Alice had a good relationship, she would unconditionally support Wang Yunxiao in such matters. It's okay. The Chicago base is also very important. Maybe it will be the last hope for survivors around the world. Besides, I'm not alone. Alice turned her gaze again to the clones that had not yet awakened, and said quietly. This is the first update, and there should be 2 more updates today. I hope new and old readers will continue to support this book and collect and recommend it. Chapter 77 Return to Chicago. Welcome back. At the Umbrella Corporation's underground research base in Chicago, Ada Wang greeted the hurriedly returning Wang Yunxiao and Lane with a smile. They haven't arrived yet, Lane asked, puzzled. She hadn't noticed any signs of an attack on the base along the way, and couldn't help but feel a little strange. Could it be that after all the chaos they'd caused, destroying an Umbrella base, they wouldn't react at all? They're just small fry. They won't cause much trouble, Ada Wang said with a calm smile, her eyes gleaming with confidence. I'm afraid they won't be able to take care of us anytime soon. Wang Yunxiao pondered for a moment, figuring out what was going on, and said so. Ada, keep an eye on the situation in Tokyo for the time being. Facing the inquiring glances from the 2 women, Wang Yunxiao didn't immediately respond, but instead gave Ada Wang a warning. Alice, Lane's eyes lit up, immediately understanding Wang Yunxiao's intention. Ada Wang's confusion deepened. She knew, of course, that Wang Yunxiao and Lane's target was Alice, but how could this matter possibly be connected to Alice? Here's what happened. Lane, no longer keeping Ada Wang in suspense, unpacked everything that had happened during their trip. By now, their relationship had improved considerably, and they could be considered close friends. In fact, after spending some time together, Lane had come to admire Ada Wang's talents. She knew she could be of much help to Wang Yunxiao, and Wang Yunxiao was interested in bringing her into their team, so naturally, she couldn't show any resistance. You 2 can chat first. We'll go find Charles. Wang Yunxiao smiled, pleased with their current relationship, and strode towards the elevator. In a laboratory on the lowest floor of the base, the unshaven Charles stared intently at the monitor before him, his eyes fixed on a rapid stream of experimental data. Not far ahead of him stood a large test nest. Inside, a hideous monster whose form was no longer recognizable, its body undergoing some inexplicable transformation, visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, Wang Yunxiao didn't bother Charles. He slowed his pace, came up behind him, and watched silently. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly, a shrill alarm blared, and the red word warning flashed on the display. Bang! The hideous monster in the test nest rapidly expanded, finally exploding with a muffled thud into a pile of rotten flesh, its walls completely covered in bloody debris. Ah! Charles sighed softly, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes, but he didn't react violently. He had experienced such failures countless times before. No progress yet, Wang Yunxiao asked softly. Yes, the supporting data for both the original virus and the G virus is too scarce, Charles said with a hint of disappointment. In fact, he had noticed something the moment Wang Yunxiao entered, but the experiment was at a critical juncture and he couldn't afford to be distracted. What a coincidence. I actually brought back some G virus test data this time. And I've found you a great helper, Wang Yunxiao said with a smile. Really? Show me, Charles' eyes lit up at that, and he eagerly urged. Don't worry, the data is all with Queen Bai. Find me a spacious place first, Wang Yunxiao said with a faint smile. Queen Bai? I see. Charles was startled for a moment, but then quickly realized what was happening. He immediately pulled Wang Yunxiao toward the open space on the side of the laboratory. Wang Yunxiao roughly calculated the size of the space and pulled out Queen Bai from his portable space, along with her massive computer. Hello, Wang Yunxiao, how can I help you? After turning on the power, the image of Queen Bai immediately appeared before them. This is Charles. I think you know him. From today on, you will help him continue his experiments, Wang Yunxiao instructed calmly. Hello, Dr. Ashford. Queen Bai, who naturally recognized Charles, greeted him crisply. Well, isn't this a good helper? But remember, don't let her connect to the internet, Wang Yunxiao said with a smug smile, and finally gave Charles a solemn warning. No problem, Charles nodded, not asking why. Right now, apart from his virus research, nothing else mattered to him. As for Queen Bai, she didn't react to Wang Yunxiao's refusal to let her connect to the internet, as if she hadn't heard. Even if that hadn't happened, how could she not know that Wang Yunxiao was wary of her? Alright, get on with your work. Wang Yunxiao patted Charles' arm, and with that, he strode away without a backward glance. Queen Bai quickly retrieved the research data on the G-virus. Charles didn't even glance at Wang Yunxiao as she left, eagerly engaging in a conversation with Queen Bai. Time passed, and before half a month had passed, Ada Wang arrived with news that the Umbrella Corporation's Tokyo base had been completely destroyed, and the culprit was, naturally, Alice. Unfortunately, in this battle, all of Alice's clone sisters perished in the base's self-destruction. That's right, self-destruction. Albert, the Tokyo base's director, was truly ruthless. Seeing no way to stop Alice and her clone sisters, he initiated the base's self-destruction sequence. Fortunately, Alice had been prepared, hiding in Albert's escape plane, avoiding the Tokyo base's self-destruction and even causing Albert to suffer a significant loss. But Albert was also cunning and ruthless, jumping out of the plane at the first opportunity to escape. As for Alice's clone sisters, they had long since committed suicide, never intending to leave Tokyo base alive. Next, keep an eye on the situation to the north, Wang Yunxiao thought for a moment before saying to Ada Wang. Understood, Ada Wang nodded without hesitation. She knew full well that the so-called Paradise of Arcadia was merely a trap set by Umbrella, waiting for the survivors, especially Alice, to take the bait. Sure enough, more than 2 months later, Ada Wang brought the latest news that Alice was once again captured by Umbrella Corporation. There should be another update tonight. I hope new and old readers will continue to support this book and collect and recommend it. Chapter 78 Saving Alice. Summer gave way to winter, and in the blink of an eye, the cold winter had arrived. Wang Yunxiao and the others had spent another 6 months peacefully at the Chicago base. This inevitably struck them as somewhat strange. Alice had been captured by Umbrella over 6 months earlier. Logically, they shouldn't have left them alone any longer, right? While they didn't know what Umbrella was up to, Wang Yunxiao and the others were content to be at ease as long as they didn't provoke them. They wouldn't provoke them, though their vigilance was heightened. They feared they might suddenly react with a nuclear bomb. That would be a disaster. However, the event Wang Yunxiao and the others feared hadn't yet occurred. A sudden request from militia disrupted their peaceful existence. That night, after dinner, Wang Yunxiao, Lane, Charles, and Ada Wang sat around a small conference table, their expressions solemn. Ms. Marcus has the latest news. Oswell has seized most of Red Queen's control from her, putting her in a very vulnerable position. To prevent any accidents, Ms. Marcus requests that you rescue Alice as soon as possible, Ada Wang said solemnly, her gaze fixed on Wang Yunxiao. No problem. Where is Alice now? Wang Yunxiao agreed without hesitation. This was exactly what he and Alicia had agreed to beforehand. Northern Russia, in the Strait of Kamchatka. The Russian base is there. In the 1980s, the Soviets built a submarine base there. After the Cold War, Umbrella expanded it and established a testing area, Ada Wang said gravely. So, we're going to infiltrate a submarine base, Lane's pupils constricted. This was no joke, it was far more dangerous than the Umbrella bases they had encountered. Yes. Since its construction, no one has ever successfully entered or escaped safely, Ada Wang said in a deep voice, a hint of something strange in her eyes. Judging from her appearance, she seemed to have suffered a great loss there before. Then let's do this first. Wang Yunxiao's expression remained calm, a powerful glint of confidence in her eyes. I'm curious, what is this test layer you just mentioned? How is it different from other bases? Charles was more concerned about this. He had once been a senior R&D staff member at Umbrella Corporation, and logically had been exposed to many secrets, but he had never heard of the test layer. The so-called test layer is a detailed simulation and reconstruction of major cities, including residents, streets, sky, night, weather, and so on. It makes it difficult for those who are inside to distinguish between authenticity and fake. Ada Wang's answer truly surprised Charles. This virtual reality technology is already comparable to Umbrella's research in biological and chemical weapons. Why are they doing this? Lane asked with a raised eyebrow. Although she didn't know the actual value of virtual reality technology, she could see some clues from Charles's performance. As you all know, Umbrella's primary revenue comes from selling biological weapons. Since some things can't be tested in the real world, they need to be simulated. They rebuilt the New York City Center, simulated a biohazard outbreak for the Soviets, and sold them the virus. Then they simulated a biohazard outbreak in Russia and sold the virus to the Americans, Ada Wang explained in detail. Establishing a weapons competition system? They've really calculated it, Lane sneered, her tone tinged with anger. Okay. Enough about the Russian base. Now, let's decide who will go to rescue Alice this time. Wang Yunxiao interrupted the three people's discussion, drawing their attention. We don't know how long this rescue will take, and I'm worried Oswald will take advantage of this opportunity to cause trouble. Charles' research has reached a critical juncture, so we can't afford to lose anything here. Someone must stay, Wang Yunxiao pondered. I'll stay, Lane offered before Wang Yunxiao could finish. She knew Wang Yunxiao well, and now that Wang Yunxiao had said that, wasn't the meaning obvious? As Alicia's confidant, Ada Wang had to go on this trip. So, besides her staying, was there any other option? Okay. I'll feel more at ease if you stay. However, if things are impossible, you must prioritize your own safety. If you give up here, then give up. Wang Yunxiao nodded lightly, but still offered a solemn reminder. I know, Lane smiled calmly, expressing confidence in defending the Chicago base. Don't worry, boss. Chad and Matt have already begun to fuse the progenitor virus. Although they haven't regained their sanity yet, their combat power is already quite good, Charles advised. He too was confident, not in himself, but in these two tyrants, Chad and Matt. Although he was also a fourth-generation zombie, he wasn't good at fighting, and his combat power was only just barely adequate. Not bad, it was the progenitor virus. After obtaining Isaac, Oswald's clone, and research data on the G-virus, Charles finally achieved another breakthrough. This wasn't specifically related to the G-virus, but rather, by combining his own research on the T-virus, he achieved a crucial step forward in the development of the progenitor virus. Of course, this doesn't mean the progenitor virus is inherently superior to the T-virus or G-virus, it simply means that each has its own strengths and weaknesses. At the very least, the progenitor virus is far inferior to the T-virus or G-virus in terms of physical enhancement. However, according to Charles' research, the progenitor virus has a significant advantage in terms of supernatural abilities. However, this advantage varies from person to person, perhaps relying entirely on the luck of the fusion recipient. Some awaken mediocre or even useless abilities, while others can awaken powerful ones. After fusion with the progenitor virus, the two tyrants, Chad and Matt, awaken modest but highly useful supernatural abilities, super strength and super healing. This significantly increased the combat power of Chad and Matt, already exceptionally strong. If they hadn't regained their composure, their fighting power would have been even stronger. In that case, I'll leave this up to you two. Ada and I will depart tomorrow. Seeing Lane and Charles' confidence, Wang Yunxiao didn't say anything more and immediately made the decision. Okay, all three of them agreed. The next morning, Wang Yunxiao and Ada Wang left the Chicago base and set off for Russia. Thanks Trilogy for the 100 Kidian coins. Here's the first update. We hope new and old readers will continue to support this book by collecting and recommending it. Chapter 79 Infiltration and Rescue. Amidst the endless expanse of snow and ice, a jumble of dilapidated warships and submarines lay frozen in the ice, a clear sign of a long-abandoned submarine base. But who could have known that Umbrella's Russian base lay beneath the ice, deep beneath the sea? At the foot of the endless snow-capped mountains, the base's entrance lay unassuming, nestled in a small, abandoned building. How do we get in? Just fight our way in, Wang Yunxiao asked Ada Wong, standing nearby. No need. While Oswell has largely taken control of the Red Queen, Ms. Marcus still has some authority. Bring this, and the surveillance cameras will automatically block us, Ada Wong said earnestly, tossing a small signal jammer to Wang Yunxiao. Alright, then, I'll leave myself to you, Wang Yunxiao said with a faint smile. He took the signal jammer, tucked it close to his body, and said teasingly. Follow closely. Ada Wong gave Wang Yunxiao a sly look, as if chastising him for not acting properly at this point, and then slinked towards the abandoned building. Wang Yunxiao shrugged and hurried after them. It was unclear whether Umbrella was truly confident in the base's security, leaving no guards at the entrance. The two of them infiltrated the base with ease. Once inside, the defenses were noticeably stronger, but they proved no problem, and presented no real threat. Ultimately, the primary defense was the ubiquitous, airtight surveillance cameras, but with the signal jammers provided by Alicia, these were rendered useless. Thus, the two of them advanced unimpeded, easily infiltrating the base's main control room. Puff, puff, amidst the inaudible crackle of gunfire, Ada Wang's silenced rifle blazed with flames. In a matter of seconds, she had mowed down every occupant of the control room, leaving blood splattered across the consoles and even the monitors. Ada Wong found a relatively clean console and keyed in a series of commands. Alice's image immediately appeared on the largest monitor. It was truly tragic. Inside a not-so-spacious, airtight room, Alice, the test subject, was huddled in a corner, her head in her hands, seemingly enduring some inhuman agony. The room's pattern resembled a vast spider web, with a protective umbrella at the center. Someone with trypophobia would be driven mad, and even ordinary people would find it unpleasant to stay there for an extended period. Warning. Warning. Intrusion detected. Security system disabled. Central computer restarting in 2 minutes. Suddenly, a shrill alarm blared. Undoubtedly, it was Ada Wong's handiwork. Swish, a drawer jutted out from the wall, revealing a black combat uniform. They couldn't let Alice out nearly naked, could they? Click. Simultaneously, the secret door to the room slowly opened. The central computer will restart in 1 minute and 45 seconds, 1 minute and 30 seconds, 1 minute and 15 seconds. Alice, still confused as to what was happening, didn't hesitate any longer as she quickly donned her combat uniform and rushed out of the secret room. Unbeknownst to her, her actions had given Wang Yunxiao, far away in the control room, a hearty ice cream feast, while earning her several glares from Ada Wong. As soon as she emerged from the secret room, Alice was chased by a laser net and forced to flee. Had Ada Wong not promptly opened the hallway door for her, she might have been killed. At that moment, Alice emerged onto the streets of Tokyo, deserted at night, a single pedestrian. Seeing everything before her, she couldn't help but wonder, could this be Umbrella's Tokyo base? But hadn't the Tokyo base already been destroyed? Unable to figure it out, Alice let it go. She was always one for action. She took 2 steps forward and checked a police car parked nearby. She tried, finding the doors locked. She grabbed a chain lock from her bicycle, swung it, and smashed the window. After searching for a while, she actually found a pistol. She didn't throw the chain lock away, but held it in her left hand, using it as a weapon. Ready, ready. Tokyo simulation activated, a mechanical voice echoed across the empty street. A light drizzle suddenly began to fall, gradually intensifying until it suddenly became a downpour. In a moment of panic, a large crowd of people streamed out of the street, ignoring Alice. Another policeman scurried over to the police car, looking at the smashed window and the missing pistol in his handcuffs, his mind spinning in panic. Suddenly, a young girl in a blue dress staggered over and bumped into Alice, her expression vacant, like the Walking Dead. Alice looked at the little girl with a strange feeling. For some reason, she felt something was wrong with her, a strange familiarity. Sure enough, the next moment, the little girl transformed into a zombie, tackled a middle-aged office worker to the ground, and without hesitation, opened her bloody maw and bit him. And this was just the beginning. The people who had just been fleeing in panic were now zombies, roaring and targeting a normal person like her. Alice quickly became alert, wrapping the chain around her left hand and drawing her pistol, scanning the long street for a suitable retreat. Roar! As one zombie roared and charged towards Alice, the others swarmed towards her. The sheer number was so dense that her scalp tingled. Bang! 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 The gun spurted flames, and the zombies in the front were all shot in the head. Alice retreated backwards. Now, she has been injected with T-virus serum and turned back into an ordinary person, but she is no match for so many zombies. Crack! Crack! Just when Alice was chased by the zombies and had no way to retreat, right in front of her, a building suddenly split open from the middle, revealing a long white corridor, which was very similar to the one she had just escaped. Alice did not dare to hesitate, turned around and ran, not caring whether it was a trap or not. The zombies, of course, chased her relentlessly, especially the little girl in blue clothes, who was in the front. More importantly, this group of zombies were obviously new evolved zombies, with agile movements and speed that was incomparable to ordinary zombies. And we also hope that new and old readers will continue to support this book and collect and recommend it. Chapter 80 Reunion and Breakout. Alice finally dispatched a dozen or so zombies that were pursuing her most urgently, only to see more of them pursue her from behind, so dense that her scalp tingled. Click! At that moment, the door at the end of the corridor slowly opened. Alice didn't hesitate, and hurried over. Click! Alice had just escaped into a pitch-black room when the door closed again. Inside the pitch-black room, she cautiously stepped forward. Click! Suddenly, a small umbrella image lit up on the floor in the middle of the room, and the entire room gradually began to illuminate. Alice cautiously raised her pistol and carefully scanned the blood-stained control consoles and monitors. Get ready. Welcome to the central control room, Alice, a mechanical voice suddenly echoed from the main control room, startling Alice. She gathered herself and was about to check the status of a control console when a fiery red figure flashed and pressed a gun against her vest from behind. Who else could it be but Ada Wong? Whether out of revenge for the ice cream incident or a desire to test Alice's strength, Ada Wong was determined to test her reach. Wang Yunxiao could only let her do what she pleased. Who is it? Alice, never letting her guard down, reacted immediately with a kickback, forcing Ada Wong to drop her gun and retreat. This was because Ada Wong had no real intention of killing her, otherwise she would have opened fire. But it was also clear that she was truly clever. She had calculated this, so she boldly fought back, attempting to regain the initiative. The next moment, the two women engaged in a lively exchange of punches and kicks. Not to mention, both women were stunning beauties, making the fight a truly pleasing sight. Ada Wong, in particular, in her fiery red cheongsam and long, white legs, held Wang Yunxiao's gaze fixed on her. In the end, Ada Wong's gun rested against Alice's heart, while Alice's gun rested between Ada Wong's eyebrows, making it a draw. This wasn't surprising. Although Alice had returned to normal life, her experiences during this time weren't in vain. Ada Wong, on the other hand, was no joke. The title of King of Agents was no joke. Pa. Wang Yunxiao clapped his hands, emerging from a corner and gazing at the two women with a smile. Wang, Alice looked at Wang Yunxiao in surprise, her eyes filled with disbelief. She hadn't expected to meet Wang Yunxiao here. Alright, put your guns down. We're all friends. This is Ada, and this is Alice. Wang Yunxiao smiled softly and briefly introduced the two women. Upon hearing this, Ada Wong sheathed her pistol. After Alice sheathed her dagger, she turned and walked towards the control panel. Well, at Ms. Marcus's request, we came to rescue you, Wang Yunxiao quickly explained the whole story. Ms. Marcus? That's the major shareholder of Umbrella you mentioned. Why did she save me? Alice was startled for a moment, then quickly realized who this Ms. Marcus was, though she remained puzzled. Perhaps she believes that only you can defeat Oswald and save the world, Wang Yunxiao shrugged, as if he wasn't entirely sure. There were some things he didn't want to tell Alice so soon, perhaps because he wasn't sure how to explain that she was also a clone. Well, thank you for coming to rescue me. Anyway, Alice was still confused, but seeing Wang Yunxiao didn't want to elaborate, she stopped asking. Oh, by the way, there's one more thing. Wang Yunxiao suddenly pretended to understand. What is it? Alice was taken aback, looking at Wang Yunxiao in confusion. But in that moment of stunned silence, a syringe suddenly appeared in Wang Yunxiao's hand, injecting the T-virus directly into her carotid artery. Ah! Alice screamed, collapsing to the ground. Her entire body convulsed violently, and a full sound gurgled in her throat. Wang Yunxiao stood silently, watching, his expression devoid of worry. He knew full well that as the heroine of this world, she was the perfect candidate for the T-virus, bar none. Is she okay? Ada Wang had returned, looking nervously at the convulsing Alice. Don't worry, she'll be fine, Wang Yunxiao replied confidently. Soon, Alice finally began to adapt to the T-virus, and her convulsions ceased. He believed she would soon fully adapt. After all, this wasn't her first time. Are you okay? Wang Yunxiao reached out to Alice. Please, could you give me a heads up next time? Alice glared at Wang Yunxiao, then took his hand and used it to help her stand. Sorry, I'll try next time. Wang Yunxiao's insincere apology rekindled Alice's pride. It's almost time, we should get moving. Ms. Marcus has arranged a commando team to meet us, Ada Wang suddenly warned, interrupting their banter. Sometimes, she was truly speechless with Wang Yunxiao. Why was he so unruly? Of course, she knew that such trivial matters were not something Wang Yunxiao would take seriously, but she was different, she was just an ordinary person. The commando team will seize control of the elevators, eliminate the resistance in the base, and help us escape. You have a friend among them, Luther, Ada Wang continued, noticing that their attention had been drawn. He's still alive, Alice's eyes flashed with surprise. Of course. To leave here, we need to cross the New York environment to the suburbs, where we'll rendezvous with the commandos. They'll pass through the Moscow environment, leading us to the submarine area and taking the elevator back to the surface. As Ada Wang explained, the route was clearly marked on the main surveillance screen. The base is now under my control. Intruders, Alice, you will all die here. Suddenly, the main surveillance screen distorted, and the image of the Red Queen appeared, gazing murderously at the three. Da. At this moment, intense gunfire rang out outside the door. Apparently, the base guards had already reached the gate. Let's wait and see, Alice replied coldly. Follow me. Ada Wang led the two of them directly in the other direction of the main control room. Somehow, she performed some operation, and another open door appeared there. Despite rushing, the third update is still late. I'll try to finish it earlier tomorrow. Chapter 81 Goddess of Vengeance. Wang Yunxiao, Ada Wang, and Alice walked side by side through the streets of a virtual New York at night. It truly looked like the real thing. It really is New York, Alice glanced around with a hint of curiosity. Although she had already heard from Wang Yunxiao that this was just a virtual reality, and even though it wasn't her first experience, she couldn't help but marvel. Let's go. We must first pass through the two test environments here. Ada Wang remained expressionless. This was not the first time she had seen such a scene. Why is Umbrella continuing these tests? Alice couldn't help but ask. They still need to study the biochemical crisis and how to control it, Ada Wang replied casually, her eyes scanning the surroundings warily. She knew Umbrella would not let them pass so easily. Ready. Start the New York simulation, the mechanical voice echoed again, echoing over the long street. A light drizzle began to fall in the night sky, gradually increasing in intensity until it was a torrential downpour. Sizzle. Suddenly, the faint sound of heavy metal scraping against the ground could be heard from both sides of the long street. Simultaneously, there were muffled footsteps. Be careful. Red Queen has activated a biological weapon, Ada Wang warned, her alert heightened. Speaking of which, after Alice reintegrated the T-virus, she was the weakest of the three. The next moment, two massive monsters, nearly 3 meters tall, emerged from either side of the long street, their heads shrouded in tattered sacks, their heavy, long-handled axes dragging across the ground. They were Umbrella's latest biological weapon, the Nemesis, infused with a G-virus. Wow, you really think highly of us, making such a big scene right off the bat. I'll take care of the one at the back, you two be careful. Wang Yunxiao smiled calmly, and began to walk towards the Nemesis behind them. Be careful too, the two women warned, each raising their light machine guns and aiming at the Nemesis in front, keeping their guard up. Whoosh, the first to attack were the two Nemesis, their heavy, long-handled axes hurled into the air, swirling and sweeping towards the three. Da. As the two women dodged, flames spurted from their guns, showering the Nemesis with bullets. Elsewhere, facing a similarly hurled long-handled axe, Wang Yunxiao didn't shy away. He thrust his arms out, grasping the axe handle with precision, his body remaining motionless. Even in sheer strength, the Nemesis was no match. Go, Wang Yunxiao channeled his strength into his arms, hurling the long-handled axe back with a swiftness far greater than the previous one. Puff! The nemesis lacked Wang Yunxiao's strength and reflexes, and was instantly knocked to the ground. However, her defense was certainly not bad, and she didn't suffer much actual damage. Of course, this was also thanks to the fact that she wasn't struck directly by the axe. Wang Yunxiao rushed forward, grabbed the axe handle, and slashed down at the nemesis again. The long-handled axe was substantial, and he wielded it quite smoothly. If it were shorter, it would have been even better. Puff! Blood splattered, and Nemesis, who had just stood up, was struck down once again. A massive gash to the bone ripped through her chest, exposing her internal organs. This was a biological weapon, otherwise, she would have been dead long ago. Even so, healing from such a massive wound would take far longer. Wang Yunxiao gave Nemesis no time to recover. With a sweep of his long-handled axe, he instantly sent her flying into the air. The next moment, Wang Yunxiao leaped high, sweeping his long-handled axe across. Nemesis's head, shrouded in a torn sack, flew far into the air, and crimson blood spurted from her neck. In just 3 quick strikes, Wang Yunxiao had decapitated Nemesis. The difference between the two was truly enormous. Nemesis's massive stature appeared formidable, but in reality, she was far inferior to even the 2 tyrants, Chad and Matt. Meanwhile, the remaining Vengeance Girl wielded her long-handled axe, forcing the other 2 to dodge. Bullets pelted her body, even her head, but caused no real damage. It was alright, Ada Wong was only human, and Alice hadn't fully absorbed the T-virus yet. Each blow from the heavy axe shattered cars lining the street, sending metal shavings flying and further shoving the 2 girls into a state of panic. Just as they were cornered against a bus, with no escape route, another long-handled axe swung across, sending vengeance caressing them. "Are you all right?" a concerned voice echoed overhead. Wang Yunxiao, crouched on the bus, watched them with a carefree gaze. He truly disregarded vengeance. Not only did he not pursue her, but he even had the time to care for the 2 girls. "We're fine, you, be careful." The 2 women breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing Wang Yunxiao approach, but the next moment, their expressions suddenly changed, and they shouted for help. Whoosh! The wind shattered, and when Wang Yunxiao turned to check, the dark axe blade was less than 10 centimeters away from him. Wang Yunxiao's hands shot out like lightning, but he was the first to arrive, firmly grasping the axe handle just above the blade. With a muffled bang, the bus roof collapsed slightly. "Get out of here!" Steadying himself, Wang Yunxiao exerted a sudden force, sending Nemesis flying and completely upside down in his hand. He tossed the axe slightly high, and as it landed, he caught it by the handle. He lunged forward, swinging the axe diagonally down at Nemesis. Da-da-da! Simultaneously, rapid gunfire rang out, and a barrage of bullets pelted Nemesis' body. While it didn't cause any substantial damage, it left her powerless to dodge. Puff! The axe blade chopped deeply into the left shoulder of the goddess of vengeance, and the entire axe head disappeared. It's not that Wang Yunxiao didn't want to chop him in half with one axe, but this guy's defense is too strong. Bang! With a loud bang, Wang Yunxiao kicked the goddess of vengeance directly and kicked her out. Her huge body was deeply embedded in a tanker truck and she couldn't break free. Bang! A gunshot rang out, and a bullet shot into the tanker truck at the same time. Boom boom boom, followed by a violent explosion. In the flames that shot into the sky, the goddess of vengeance had already been blown to pieces. Today's update is a bit late, so I will give it 2 updates first. For the 3rd update, I can only say that I will try my best. I hope that new and old readers will continue to support this book and collect and recommend it. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82, All Acquaintances. 2 Furies were slain one after another. Before Wang Yunxiao and the other 2 could leave, the long street suddenly darkened. When it returned, it was already twilight. "What's going on?" Alice cautiously raised her machine gun and glanced around. "Don't panic. This is the end of the simulation. Each simulation lasts no more than an hour. Let's go before the Red Queen starts a new one." Ada Wong, unfazed, walked forward. Wang Yunxiao shrugged and, along with Alice, quickly followed behind Ada Wong. Sure enough, before the three of them had gotten far, or even stepped off the long street, the scene before them suddenly changed. Blue sky, white clouds, lush green grass, and the tranquil streets of Raccoon City. This is the rendezvous point. It seems the commandos are late. They seem to be in trouble, Ada Wong said solemnly, glancing at her watch. Listen, there's movement in the house on the left, the one with the second-floor window, Alice suddenly said. The three of them exchanged a glance and immediately headed for the house Alice had mentioned. The room was a shambles, with overturned furniture, bloodstains everywhere, and the gruesome corpses of zombies on the stairs. Most notably, the body of the hostess in the living room bore a striking resemblance to Alice. Damn it! Another clone of mine. Though this wasn't the first time Alice had seen such a sight, her expression remained utterly grim. Of course, your clone is just one of the 50 basic models. Otherwise, where do you think the people in each simulation come from? Ada Wong said darkly. Hundreds of people die in each simulation. Umbrella implants them with basic memories to ensure they have the correct emotional responses to biohazards. In her life, she could have been a housewife, a strong woman, or even a special forces officer. Ada Wong's words were neutral, but the content of her words was shocking. Alice listened expressionlessly, no one knowing what she was thinking. Don't overthink it. Let's go upstairs first. Wang Yunxiao sighed softly, patted Alice's shoulder, and slowly walked upstairs, hoping to distract her. In a pink children's room on the second floor, a delicate little girl named Becky, upon seeing Alice, threw herself into her arms with surprise. Unfortunately, little Becky was deaf. Gently stroking Becky's back, Alice's expression was filled with confusion. It was obvious that Becky was her clone's child. Sure enough, in the adjoining master bedroom, the three of them found a photo of Becky and her family. The woman was Alice's clone, and the man was Carlos, who had tragically died in Arcadia, also a clone, no doubt. This further complicated Alice's feelings for Carlos. This is all fake, Ada Wong whispered as Becky went to pack her things. But it's all real to her. Alice shook her head slightly. I understand, but her feelings for you are completely imprinted in her mind. And just a day ago, her memory was blank. Perhaps soon you'll see a group of her, frozen in the freezer, waiting to be awakened. Though reluctant, Ada Wong pressed on. She felt they were already on their way out, and bringing along the cloned version of little Becky would be a complete burden. It might be cruel, but that was reality. Alice remained silent. She knew Ada Wong's concerns were valid, but how could she bear to abandon little Becky like that? Well, let her decide. Wang Yunxiao patted Ada Wong's shoulder, stopping her from continuing. He knew full well that Alice would most likely choose to take little Becky with her. Mom, I'm ready. We can go. Just then, little Becky, fully dressed and carrying her small backpack, came bounding back. The little girl was truly naive, oblivious to the impending danger. Okay, let's go. Seeing the innocent smile on little Becky's face, Alice smiled genuinely too. She took her hand and headed downstairs. When the three adults and one child returned to the entrance, a large group of base soldiers had already been waiting. Leading the group were all familiar faces, the long-missing Jill, the deceased Carlos and James, and even Rain, now far away at the Chicago base. Although Wang Yunxiao knew they were clones, he still felt awkward facing Rain's clone. He finally understood how Alice felt about facing her own clone. At the same time, he felt a sense of relief that he hadn't brought Rain along this time. Otherwise, with her fiery temper, she would have definitely lost her temper. Dad, little Becky looked at the Carlos clone with some surprise, ready to lunge for him, but Alice held her back. He's not your father, Alice explained softly, sensing Becky's puzzled gaze, but she didn't want to be distracted, her eyes fixed firmly on the enemy before her. There's a child here. After a brief silence, Alice looked expressionlessly at the familiar people before her. That's your problem, not ours, the Lane clone replied coldly, unbolting its rifle. Just like her original self, she shared a cold, apathetic personality. Your personality is truly awful. Nothing like the one I knew, Alice said coldly, her anger welling up. However, she was mistaken. Coming from the Special Forces, Lane often paid little attention to the lives of strangers in order to complete her mission, otherwise, she would have died countless times. I don't know you, miss. As expected, the Lane clone's reaction was exactly what Wang Yunxiao had expected. Now, surrender? Or die, James' clone coldly issued his final ultimatum. Capture alive, or annihilate. Jill was even more direct, her face thick with murderous intent. Of these people, she was the only one who wasn't a clone, but her mind was controlled by the red spider device on her chest, and she completely obeyed the Red Queen's orders. "Alright, we surrender," Alice said as she slowly moved to the side, seemingly protecting little Becky behind her. Unexpectedly, as Alice moved out of the way, the black muzzle of Ada Wong's gun was revealed, and flames spewed out, instantly cutting several base soldiers into pieces. As for those old acquaintances, they reacted quickly, dodging the incoming bullets while also firing back. Today's update is a bit late, so here are 2 updates first. I can only say that I'll do my best for the 3rd update. I hope new and old readers will continue to support this book and collect and recommend it. Chapter 83, Breaking Off and Reuniting. Intensive gunfire echoed outside the main entrance of the house. Wang Yunxiao and the other 2, who had taken refuge inside, were completely pinned down by the base's firepower, including clones of Jill and Lane. The house was quickly reduced to a deadly siege. While Wang Yunxiao and his companions' marksmanship was far superior to that of the base's soldiers, and each counterattack inevitably claimed several lives, their sheer numbers were no match. Often, sheer numbers can effectively suppress the enemy, making it difficult for individual fighters to forcibly reverse the situation, unless Wang Yunxiao had truly achieved invulnerability and bulletproof defense. That won't work. Break through the back door quickly, and I'll hold them off. Wang Yunxiao carefully observed the situation and made a quick decision. While the back door would undoubtedly be surrounded by base soldiers, their numbers would undoubtedly be smaller than the front. Given the strength of Ada Wang and Lane, they still had a good chance of escaping the encirclement. Okay, be careful. The 2 women knew now was not the time to hesitate. After giving Wang Yunxiao a warning, they resolutely led little Becky and charged towards the back door. Wang Yunxiao suddenly leaned forward, raising the heavy machine gun he had just retrieved from his personal space. Flames streamed fiercely from the muzzle, momentarily suppressing the firepower of Jill, Lane's clones, and the others, giving the 2 women a better chance to break out. Their ammunition quickly emptied, and Wang Yunxiao was forced to retreat back, allowing Jill, Lane's clones, and the others to return fire frantically. But by then, the 2 women had already fought their way out of the encirclement and fled. Boom! Lane's clone, having also learned of the 2 women's escape, angrily fired a new type of rocket, which split into multiple pieces mid-flight and blasted into the room. Boom boom boom, amidst the deafening explosions, the entire house was blasted skyward. The 2 women, already at the end of the street, paused and glanced back worriedly. "Don't worry, he'll be fine," Ada Wang, the first to react, whispered. She couldn't tell if she was speaking to Alice or herself. Though she knew Wang Yunxiao was incredibly powerful, she couldn't help but worry. Yet, Alice nodded, pulling little Becky along as she continued running. Ada Wang cast another long glance behind her before following closely behind Alice. Elsewhere, in the completely razed house, Jill, Lane's clone, and the others were meticulously searching their bodies and the like. They saw it as a good thing that even if Alice escaped, they'd still be able to eliminate Wang Yunxiao. Unfortunately, they were doomed to be disappointed. The moment the explosion occurred, Wang Yunxiao had instantly dodged and hidden in Lin Jin's house. It wasn't that Wang Yunxiao didn't want to use flash to escape. Not only was he unsure of the women's distance, but each flash only covered a distance of less than 700 meters, with a 2-second pause between each. No matter which direction he flashed, he'd most likely become a sitting duck for Jill and Lane's clones, who would keep them locked in their tracks. There was no other way. The later he flashed, the harder it would be to improve. Furthermore, to prevent Jill and Lane's clones from immediately pursuing the women, Wang Yunxiao had to remain and continue to engage them. As for completely eliminating them while they were still alive, it wasn't impossible, but there was no need. They were just clones, and Red Queen could always awaken more. The only thing Wang Yunxiao wasn't sure about was whether Red Queen could awaken other clones while Lane and the other clones were still alive. Were there any other restrictions? Furthermore, if clones of the same original body met, would any unforeseen consequences arise? This is perfectly normal. Clones are also living people. Suddenly encountering someone who looks exactly like them is bound to raise suspicions, especially since they're unaware of the harsh reality of being clones. In the original novel, while 2 clones of Rain appear simultaneously, they never meet. Could this be a deliberate manipulation by the Red Queen? Furthermore, Later on, when Oswald encounters his clone, he is promptly killed by it. Meanwhile, Ada Wong and Rain had already fled to the Russian simulation and encountered another clone of Rain in a subway station. Fortunately, this clone wasn't a combatant and was rather kind, saving the girls some trouble. Afterward, the girls entrusted little Becky to the Rain clone's care and immediately set out to meet the commando who hadn't yet appeared. After all, Alice's old friend Luther was also a member of the commando unit. This commando team had a truly miserable time. Having barely entered the base and the Russian simulation, they were chased and driven into panic by countless biochemical soldiers. Not only could they not rescue Alice and her companions, but even their own survival was a challenge. Furthermore, having barely escaped the biochemical soldiers, the commandos were targeted by a giant licker of who knows how many generations of evolution, instantly killing one of their own. True to its name, this giant licker was incredibly massive, over 10 times larger than a typical licker. Furthermore, not only was the giant licker enormous, its combat power was also over 10 times greater. Even Umbrella's most powerful biochemical weapons, the Tyrant or the Nemesis, were no match for it. Clearly, bullets barely penetrated its defenses. Just as the commandos were cornered, on the verge of being devoured by the giant licker, Ada Wong and Alice suddenly appeared in a car, knocking the giant licker away. They then grabbed the remaining 3 commandos and sped away. While the impact was significant, it clearly did no harm to the giant licker, barely holding it back for a moment. But before they could get far, the bio-soldiers caught up again, showering them with bullets. Whoosh, boom, the bio-soldiers even used rocket launchers. If it weren't for Ada Wong's exceptional driving skills, the car would have been blasted skyward. Braving the hail of bullets and the occasional violent explosions, the car forged ahead at high speed. Though nerve-wracking, they were ultimately safe. Bang, 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 but before they could breathe a sigh of relief, heavy footsteps sounded from behind, drawing ever closer. They didn't even need to look back to know the giant licker was catching up again. Thanks Trilogy for the 100 Kidian coins. Here's the first update. We hope new and old readers will continue to support this book by adding it to your favorites and recommending it. Chapter 84 Giant Licker. The giant licker was in hot pursuit, completely indiscriminate between friend and foe. Wherever it passed, the bio-soldiers were blown away, their fate unknown. Ada Wong had already floored the accelerator, the car speeding away, but even then, it still felt not fast enough. She wished the car had wings and could escape the giant licker's pursuit. With the car about to be overtaken by the giant licker, Ada Wong gritted her teeth and steered straight into the subway station. She rammed through countless buildings, but by some strange coincidence, she managed to pin the giant licker underneath, finally escaping it for the time being. Without hesitation, everyone got out of the car and joined little Becky and the Rain clone, intent on escaping this damned place as quickly as possible. "Becky, where are you?" "I'm back, you can come out now," Alice called out, returning to where she had separated from little Becky. "Mom." Little Becky ran out from behind a stone pillar and threw herself into Alice's arms. "Mom," Luther looked at Alice in surprise. "This is a complicated matter to explain. I'll tell you later," Alice said, caressing little Becky's back lovingly while addressing Luther. "Hi, you're back. Who are they?" At this moment, a clone of Rain approached, curiously eyeing the 3 commandos, armed and armed. "Hello, I'm not only Luther, but the other 2 commandos, Leon and Barry," even though on guard, introduced themselves enthusiastically. "Beautiful women always have privileges, don't they? Time's running out. We'd better get going," Ada Wong warned sternly, interrupting their conversation. "We can't take the original route." Speaking of business, Luther regained his composure. "We lost Sergei and the map along with him," Barry muttered, a trace of sadness in his eyes. "Follow me." Through the subway tunnel, there's a maintenance hatch at the end, leading directly to the submarine area. Ada Wong, clearly well versed in the details, began to explain. "Damn it. Hurry, that monster's coming again," but before Ada Wong could finish, Leon suddenly cried out in shock. The others quickly followed Leon's gaze, only to see the giant licker appear at the end of the corridor without a sound. Bang, 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 the giant licker, realizing its presence had been revealed, abandoned its careful concealment and charged towards Ada Wong and the others. Each thumping footstep felt like a direct blow to their hearts. At this moment, Ada Wong and the others tried to flee, but it was too late. They immediately raised their weapons, attempting to stop the giant licker. Unfortunately, their bullets had little chance of penetrating its defenses. Roar! As Ada Wang and the others drew closer, the giant licker roared with excitement, its eyes gleaming with brutality and bloodlust. Just as Ada Wang and the others were on the verge of complete despair, they caught a glimpse of a figure ahead. Then, with a resounding thud, the giant licker was sent flying. For a moment, they almost thought it was an illusion. Wang, Ada Wang and Alice exclaimed in unison, delighted, upon seeing the incoming figure. "You go ahead, I'll catch up," Wang Yunxiao smiled at them. To the two women, Ada Wang, in particular, possessed a unique charm. "Be careful. Let's go," Ada Wang shouted to Wang Yunxiao, and without hesitation, she led the others towards the subway tunnel. At this moment, their confidence in Wang Yunxiao was greater than ever. Who is he? Is it really okay for him to stay alone? From a distance, Wang Yunxiao could faintly hear the others' curious inquiries. Roar! The giant licker let out a series of low growls, observing Wang Yunxiao warily. It didn't attack immediately, as if it realized he wasn't someone to be trifled with. "What? You don't dare come over? You're quite clever, monster." Wang Yunxiao's lips curled slightly. Since the giant licker didn't dare approach, he would just go. The blade of the god of war instantly appeared in Wang Yunxiao's hand. With a flash of his figure, he appeared above the giant licker's head, and the blade of the god of war slashed down heavily. Despite its enormous size, the giant licker was not at all unwieldy. Its massive front claws made a clanging sound as it instantly met the blade of the god of war. Puff! Blood splattered, leaving a massive wound on the giant licker's front paw, but for such a massive creature, it was a minor injury. Wang Yunxiao's figure flashed again, appearing behind the giant licker. War god blade slashed down again at the back of its head. The giant licker lunged forward, perfectly dodging Wang Yunxiao's blow, as if it had eyes on its back. Even so, Wang Yunxiao felt a momentary inability to defeat the giant licker. His attacks, combined with his dodging, were incredibly powerful, but unless he struck the giant licker's vital points, he could inflict no substantial damage. This was only temporary, however. Wang Yunxiao didn't yet fully understand the giant licker, and he had no experience fighting such a massive monster. He believed that with time, the giant licker would no longer pose much of a challenge to him. Sharp flashes of blade flashed, each one sharper and faster than the last. Perhaps just one strike, or even several, would have been no problem for the giant licker, but as Wang Yunxiao slashed relentlessly, blade after blade, it gradually began to strain. As time went by, the giant licker's entire body was drenched in blood, leaving barely a single intact spot. Its two front paws were especially noticeable, their bones exposed. Furthermore, as the giant licker's wounds grew more numerous and more severe, its reflexes became noticeably less effective. This created a vicious cycle. Wang Yunxiao's attacks became increasingly effective, while the giant licker's resistance grew increasingly difficult. Swish! One moment, Wang Yunxiao was in front of the giant licker, launching a relentless frontal assault. The next, he appeared behind it. With a whistling sound, the war god's blade pierced deeply into the back of its head, sending blood splattering. Roar! The giant licker let out a painful wail, collapsing heavily to the ground. The wails gradually faded, eventually becoming inaudible. This is the final update for today. The editor has announced that the American comic zombie series will be available tomorrow at 12 p.m. We hope that readers, both new and old, will continue to support this book by collecting, recommending, and subscribing. Chapter 85: The Final Battle. By then, Ada Wang and the others had passed the submarine area and reached the elevator platform. However, Red Queen clearly wouldn't let them go so easily. She not only severed the electrical network but also unleashed a biohazard. Soon, another giant licker approached, leaving Ada Wang and the others with no choice but to confront it. However, the sudden appearance of the giant licker immediately devoured the weakest of the two, Little Becky and Lane's clones. Though utterly enraged, Alice remained steadfast. She single-handedly distracted the giant licker, buying the remaining group time to repair the electrical network. Unfortunately, their attempt to repair the network safely proved impossible. Base soldiers led by Jill pursued them, forcing them into a bitter battle at a significant disadvantage. They barely held out for long before another member was slain, Barry, shot to death. Finally, only Ada Wang, Leon, and Luther remained. Most importantly, under the suppressive firepower of Jill and other base soldiers, the three had no chance of repairing the circuit network. If they couldn't quickly reverse this disadvantage, their fate was imminent. Bang, bang. At that moment, a dull, distinct sound of gunfire rang out, and one base soldier after another was shot on the head. "Sniper, everyone beware," Jill, reacting immediately, shouted to the base soldiers. Immediately, the base soldiers took cover. However, this was useless. As long as the base soldiers poked their heads out to shoot, a bullet would always find their heads and take them down. The unknown sniper and the constant loss of numbers were truly overwhelming for a while, greatly relieving the pressure on Ada Wang and the other two. And so, thanks to the mysterious sniper's precise shooting and the tacit coordination of the three, they successfully suppressed the base soldiers' firepower. Jill and the other soldiers at the base naturally hated being so passive, but unfortunately, they couldn't even pinpoint a mysterious sniper's location. Logically, this was impossible for their seasoned combat experience, but the mysterious sniper's position was so erratic that they even briefly suspected there was more than one. Of course, there was only one mysterious sniper, but if he also possessed the ability to teleport, that would be a different story. Yes, this mysterious sniper was none other than Wang Yunxiao. He was back to his old ways, wielding a sniper rifle just like when he first entered the Marvel Universe. Honestly, in the current situation, it was far more effective than charging straight into the enemy lines. While the base's soldiers were numerous, they weren't infinite. Furthermore, Wang Yunxiao's sniper rifle's rate of fire was comparable to machine guns. With their numbers rapidly declining, their situation became increasingly challenging. Not only the regular soldiers, but also the two clones leading the charge, Carlos and James, were shot in the head one after another. This allowed Ada Wang and the other two to not only gradually seize complete control, but also reclaim the opportunity to repair the circuit network. "Damn it," the Rain clone muttered angrily, then pulled out a syringe, inserted it into her carotid artery, and injected the virus into her body. HMPH, the next moment, the Rain clone groaned in pain, her muscles twitching and shaking violently. But when she regained her composure, she was completely different, radiating a powerful aura from within. Besides the Rain clone, only Jill and 2 or 3 kittens remained, seemingly posing no threat to Ada Wang and the other two. But was that really the case? Bang, bang, bang. Facing the charging Rain clone, the 3 men fired rapidly. While they managed to stop her charge, the next moment, as the 3 watched in astonishment, she ejected the bullets one by one. Seizing this opportunity, Wang Yunxiao quickly dispatched the remaining base soldiers, then abandoned her concealment and dodged in front of Jill. Jill stared at Wang Yunxiao expressionlessly as he unsheathed a short staff. Its ends gradually extended, transforming into a long stick with sharp claws. But Wang Yunxiao didn't want to waste time with Jill. A clone of Rain was waiting for him over there, and Ada Wang and the other two wouldn't be able to hold her back for long. In a flash, Wang Yunxiao was in front of Jill, reaching out to claw at her chest. Don't misunderstand, it wasn't that Wang Yunxiao's ruthless nature was taking advantage of her. He knew full well that Jill was being controlled by the red spider device in her chest, and if he could dismantle it, he could win without a fight. Jill reacted quickly, swinging the staff at Wang Yunxiao, trying to force him away and further exploit his advantage with a long weapon. But to Jill's surprise, Wang Yunxiao made no move to dodge, allowing the long staff to sweep across him, its sharp claws slicing a bloody wound deep into his side, piercing the bone. At the same time, his right hand had already grasped the red spider device with precision. Zzz, a powerful electrical current flashed, striking Wang Yunxiao's arm. He showed no reaction, and as he retreated, the red spider device was ripped from his grasp. Plop! Jill's eyes closed as he fell to the ground, completely unconscious. Looking back at Wang Yunxiao's right hand, the red spider device was still struggling fiercely. The ruby on its back flickered, and its 8 alloy tentacles kicked frantically, as if it wasn't just trying to escape, but to parasitize him. Crack! Wang Yunxiao exerted force with his right hand, crushing the red spider device instantly. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Ada Wang and the other two were at a complete disadvantage. With Elaine's clones closing in on them, they were completely outmatched in close combat. A single blow easily sent them flying. How long had it taken Wang Yunxiao to defeat Jill? But in that short time, the 3 were practically powerless to fight back. However, the clone of Elaine rushed forward and rushed to Ada Wang, who had just struggled to stand up. He raised his hand and slapped her with a palm, aiming directly at her heart. This palm seemed light, But if it was really hit by her, Ada Wong would most likely die. As the person involved, Ada Wong felt it more clearly. At this moment, it seemed as if the flow of time was slowing down, but she just looked in the direction of Wang Yunxiao with nostalgia. It's on the shelves now, and 3 updates are here first. There will be at least 2 more updates today. The first subscription is very important. I hope that new and old book friends can support this book. Please collect, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 86 Return. Bang! With a muffled thud, a large hand gripped the clone's wrist, less than 3 centimeters from Ada Wong's chest, preventing it from moving any further. Are you alright? The gentle words warmed Ada Wong's heart, and a mist formed in her eyes. In that moment, she truly felt how close death was. Be careful. Ada Wong seemed to want to say something, but the words on her lips instantly became an anxious warning. Whoosh! With a gust of wind, the clone swung its other arm, slashing across Wang Yunxiao's throat. The force was so swift that before Ada Wong could even finish her warning, the blade was already before him. Bang! Wang Yunxiao reached out to grab, but he was the first to arrive, firmly grasping the wrist. His hands were like 2 iron clamps, holding the clone's hands tightly, unable to break free. Looking at the familiar, pretty face before him, he felt a daze, unable to bring himself to do it. The Rain clone, however, showed no sign of feeling anything towards Wang Yunxiao. Since it couldn't free its hands, it fortunately ignored them and kneeled down, slamming into his groin. A ruthless blow, it threatened to annihilate his offspring. Wang Yunxiao's heart sank, and he dared not lose his focus. He raised his foot and launched a kick, again arriving first, striking the Rain clone's calf hard, sending her stumbling. HMPH, he released the Rain clone's hands and, before she could react, delivered another swift kick. With a muffled grunt, she was sent flying dozens of meters away. Wang Yunxiao still had some strength left in this kick, so he didn't kill her. Be careful. I'll go repair the circuit network. Ada Wang, standing nearby, naturally noticed something, but remained silent, returning to her work. Meanwhile, Leon and Luther had recovered somewhat and managed to come to Ada Wang's side, keeping a cautious lookout. Damn it, the Rain clone stood up again, muttering an angry curse before charging at Wang Yunxiao again without hesitation. Though aware of the vast disparity between them, she, completely under the Red Queen's control, could not disobey her orders. Pa! Wang Yunxiao smiled calmly, dodging in front of the Rain clone and swatting away her incoming fist with a raised palm. Pa! Amidst the continuous, crisp sounds, Wang Yunxiao defended, never attacking, yet each time effortlessly parried the Rain clone's ferocious attacks. Ada Wang, completely uninterrupted, made rapid progress, restoring the electrical network in mere minutes. Wang, come back. The 3 returned to the elevator platform, naturally calling out to Wang Yunxiao. Bang! Another palm sent the Rain clone flying. Wang Yunxiao ultimately refrained from killing her. Instead, he dodged and grabbed the still unconscious Jill, leaping onto the elevator platform in a few leaps. Crack! Rumble! After a crisp sound, the elevator churned with a dull thud and began to rapidly ascend. No, the Rain clone had just regained its feet, only to watch Wang Yunxiao and the others depart, roaring in anger. On the elevator platform, Wang Yunxiao gazed down at the Rain clone below with a complex expression. He knew that if he left her behind, her most likely fate would be destruction along with the entire base. Boom! Boom boom boom! As expected, before Wang Yunxiao could even conceive, a massive explosion echoed from deep within the base. This was followed by a continuous series of violent explosions. Billowing waves of fire and thick smoke swept in, only to be swallowed by the surging sea. Looking down from the elevator platform, the entire base had instantly become a vast ocean. Crack! With a crisp sound, the elevator platform abruptly stopped, still over 100 meters above the ground, neither rising nor falling. With the entire base destroyed, the electrical network was naturally not spared. Fortunately, the elevator platform merely hovered, showing no sign of falling. But to everyone's great surprise, and by sheer coincidence, just as the elevator platform stopped, a small door opened not far above, revealing Alice and little Becky. Having survived the ordeal, everyone was naturally excited, especially Jill, who had regained consciousness and her memory. Through Alice's account, they learned that the explosion at the base was her own doing, and it was precisely because of this that she had been able to defeat the giant licker. Next, Wang Yunxiao used a flash to reach the ground, over 100 meters away without issue. He then lowered a rope and pulled the others up one by one. Just as everyone reached the surface, a transport plane bearing the umbrella logo suddenly appeared. Everyone quickly took alert, their weapons trained on the slowly descending transport plane. "Don't worry, Ms. Marcus has sent us to pick us up," Ada Wang immediately explained, putting everyone at ease. They boarded the transport plane, which slowly lifted off and sped away from the icy Kamchatka Strait. "Alice, what are your plans next? Do you want to return to Chicago with us?" Wang Yunxiao asked Alice aboard the transport plane. "No, I want to meet Ms. Marcus first," Alice thought for a moment, then declined Wang Yunxiao's invitation. "I'm afraid it's difficult." Wang Yunxiao spread her hands and turned her gaze to Ada Wang beside her. Although Ada Wang hadn't said it, she could already guess that her current situation was not very good. "Ms. Marcus isn't very available right now, so," as expected, Ada Wang hesitated, looking embarrassed. In reality, Ada Wang's words were just polite. It wasn't that Alicia was inconvenienced, she was simply restricted by Oswell. What she could do this time was already the limit. However, precisely because of this, I'm afraid her life will become even more difficult. So, you should go back to Chicago with us first, so as not to be caught by Umbrella again. When there's a chance, you will naturally be able to meet Ms. Marcus, Wang Yunxiao advised. Okay, Alice no longer refused and nodded in agreement. What about you? Wang Yunxiao asked the others again. Of course I want to go back to Chicago with you, Jill agreed without thinking. Let's go too. Leon and Luther looked at each other, saw each other's intentions, and both agreed. After all, they and Alicia were only in an employment relationship. Now that the mission is completed, this relationship is considered to be dissolved, and they have regained their freedom. It's on the shelves, and 3 updates are provided first. There will be at least 2 more updates today. The first order is very important. I hope that new and old book friends can support this book. Please collect, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 87 Ada Wang's Choice, Part 1. After more than 10 hours of continuous flight, the transport plane finally reached the Chicago base. The scene below truly startled Wang Yunxiao and his companions. On the ground, the industrial park, once awash with tall buildings, was now utterly destroyed. To call it a ruin would be an understatement, it looked as if bombs had ripped through the ground. Only the surrounding walls remained intact, but they were also riddled with damage, bullet holes, and blood stains. What terrified Wang Yunxiao and his companions most was the countless zombies gathered outside the walls, so dense and swarming that it was terrifying. They truly believed that all the zombies in the southern United States had gathered here. Woo, woo. The arrival of the transport plane was immediately detected by the Chicago base, and sirens wailed over the ruins of the industrial park. Following closely behind were teams of heavily armed fighters, their guns pointed at the circling transport plane, most of them armed with heavy weapons. The men and 2 women in the lead were none other than the heroic Lane, and the 2 Terrence Chad and Matt. Fortunately, they did not launch an attack immediately, otherwise it would have been a lot of fun. The transport plane that Wang Yunxiao and the others were riding on was really an ordinary transport plane, which did not carry any weapon systems. In a real battle, they would only be sitting ducks. I'm back, Wang Yunxiao did not dare to hesitate, and in a flash he teleported in front of Lane, smiling and opening his arms. Yet, a few waves flashed in Lane's eyes, and she stepped forward and hugged Wang Yunxiao affectionately. After a long time, the 2 reluctantly separated, and the transport plane slowly descended under Lane's arrangement. The reunion of old friends was naturally lively again. Later, Wang Yunxiao and the others learned from Lane's account that shortly after he and Ada Wang had left, Umbrella, as if forewarned, had launched a massive attack on the Chicago base. Luckily, Lane and the others were well prepared and were able to withstand the fierce attack, though the entire industrial park was destroyed. Fortunately, the underground base was spared significant damage. After their initial attack failed, Umbrella didn't pursue the attack further, nor did they deploy a nuclear bomb as Wang Yunxiao had feared. Instead, they employed some unknown method to attract a massive zombie swarm, which surrounded the entire Chicago base. By then, most of the surrounding walls had been destroyed. The rush to rebuild the walls against the zombies had resulted in heavy losses for the base's defenders, exceeding even the previous Umbrella attack. Nevertheless, Chicago was finally secured, and Lane and Charles had finally lived up to Wang Yunxiao's expectations. And that was what they cared about most. When Lane asked about their journey, Wang Yunxiao didn't hide anything. While his account wasn't detailed, it was clear enough, briefly mentioning the cloning. Lane, though aware of some of this, didn't question him further. From that day on, Alice and the others settled into the Chicago base, awaiting further news from Alicia. Alice wasn't naive enough to assume that Alicia had gone to such great lengths to rescue her simply out of kindness, with no ulterior motive. However, Alice and the others never imagined that this wait would stretch on for years. Time flew by, and years passed unnoticed. For everyone, especially Alice, it was a rare moment of peace. Umbrella, for some unknown reason, hadn't bothered them since the attack several years prior. These past few years had been busy, especially Alice. Under Lane's guidance, she had mastered her telekinesis, eliminating the potential side effects of her use. Of course, her telekinesis was still considerably inferior to Lane's. As for Rain, her progress in recent years hasn't been significant. Her abilities in all areas have already reached peak strength, and any further improvement would require her to ascend to the third generation. Unfortunately, Wang Yunxiao is only at the third generation, so she's clearly not in a position to advance. Wang Yunxiao, on the other hand, has seen some improvement, primarily in the development of his special abilities. He can now use his flashes continuously, without any time gaps between them. He can even reach any distance in an instant. The only problem is that his energy consumption hasn't improved significantly. Wang Yunxiao has made many attempts, but to no avail. He's already made up his mind. Upon returning to the Marvel Universe, he'll try to obtain the Space Stone, even if it's just to absorb some more special energy. Since he can't improve his energy consumption, he'll have to find a way to improve his special energy. Furthermore, due to the lack of special energy within his body, Wang Yunxiao's further development of his special abilities has been slow. As for Charles, his research and development of the progenitor virus was nearly complete. The most obvious manifestation of this was the return of Chad and Matt, two tyrants, to sanity after nearly a decade of unconsciousness. However, their inhuman bodies, altered by both the T-virus and the progenitor virus, particularly the sharp claws on their right hands, could never be restored. Chad and Matt were quite open-minded about this, content with their return to sanity and not expecting more. Furthermore, their current combat prowess was far superior to that of ordinary humans, surpassing even Alice and not much behind Rain. In a sense, wasn't this a blessing in disguise? Seeing the rapid growth of those around her, Ada Wang began to harbor other thoughts. That night, Ada Wang suddenly found Wang Yunxiao in his bedroom. This puzzled him, and he couldn't help but wonder, could it be that the sisters had finally been captivated by their brother's beauty and thrown themselves into his arms? I want to fuse the original virus. Well, Ada Wang's first words completely shattered Wang Yunxiao's why. Why did you suddenly make such a decision? Wang Yunxiao frowned slightly and looked at Ada Wang with a little puzzlement. Have you really thought about it? Ada Wang didn't even need to answer. As soon as he met her persistent, firm and unwilling eyes, Wang Yunxiao understood everything. Yet, Ada Wang nodded seriously. Why is it the original virus? You know, it hasn't been successfully tested in living subjects yet. After thinking about it, Wang Yunxiao asked again. It's on the shelves, and 3 updates are here first. There will be at least 2 more updates today. The first order is very important. I hope that old and new book friends can support this book. Please collect, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 88 Ada Wang's Choice, Part 2. Why not the T-virus? It's more mature. Not only are there successful cases with Alice and Lane, but I've heard that even Oswell and his lackey, Albert, have integrated the T-virus, Wang Yunxiao asked earnestly, looking directly into Ada Wang's eyes. In Wang Yunxiao's view, both the original virus and the T-virus have their strengths and weaknesses. The original virus is weaker than the T-virus in terms of physical enhancement, but it offers greater potential for supernatural abilities. However, as he mentioned, the failure rate of integrating the original virus is much higher than that of the T-virus. So far, there hasn't been a single successful case. Of course, if it's used in a zombie transformation, that's another matter. I know. But I believe you, Ada Wang replied earnestly, also staring intently into Wang Yunxiao's eyes. Over the years, she'd been nearly inseparable from Wang Yunxiao, knowing not only the development of the original virus but also many of his secrets. Of course, that was simply something Wang Yunxiao had never considered hiding from her. Have you thought it through? If I really do it, you'll never be able to leave me for the rest of your life. Wang Yunxiao raised a brow, suppressing the surprise in his heart and asking calmly. Why? You don't want to? Ada Wang asked with a half-smile. Of course not, I'd love it, Wang Yunxiao exclaimed exaggeratedly, almost swearing to the heavens. Okay, stop pretending. Do you think I don't know what you've been planning all these years? Ada Wang rolled her eyes at Wang Yunxiao coquettishly. That alluring charm really made Wang Yunxiao intoxicated, and he almost lost control. Okay, I'll have Charles send over an original virus right now. Fortunately, Wang Yunxiao finally remembered the business, quickly suppressed the temptation in his heart, and called Charles to inform him. That embarrassed look really made Ada Wang laugh. Charles moved quickly and soon arrived with the original virus. With him came Rain. They all understood the significance of Ada Wang's injection of the original virus, and they knew Wang Yunxiao had been eyeing her for a long time, now finally getting what he wanted. Similarly, Lane and Charles treated Ada Wang, their soon-to-be family member, with great respect. After handing the original virus to Wang Yunxiao and quietly exiting the room, they didn't leave immediately, but instead remained outside the door. Wang Yunxiao had consistently instilled in Lane and Charles the belief that all his descendants were family, even closer than family. So far, the results seemed promising, but he wondered if the harmony would remain the same in the future, with a larger population. Regardless, he would persist in this philosophy. After all, they shared the same bloodline. You do it? Or me? Wang Yunxiao toyed with a syringe in his hand, the crimson liquid flowing from it. It was Charles's brainchild, the original virus. This original virus was truly unique, even Umbrella didn't have one. You talk too much nonsense, Ada Wang glared at Wang Yunxiao, but her inner tension had dissipated considerably. It wasn't a matter of trust, but rather the uncertainty. Often, the unknown is the most terrifying, it's instinct. Alright, I'll do it, Wang Yunxiao shrugged, and with lightning speed, he injected the original virus into Ada Wang's body. As soon as the original virus entered Ada Wang's system, she couldn't help but cry out in pain. Her whole body convulsed violently, and beads of sweat immediately covered her cheeks. Veins bulged on her face and exposed skin, making her look hideous. Wang Yunxiao was quick to act, scooping Ada Wang into his arms. Although he knew this was the pain she had to endure, a flicker of pity crossed his eyes. Finally, seeing the inhuman changes beginning to take hold of Ada Wang, Wang Yunxiao no longer hesitated and bit down on the carotid artery in her neck. The boiling blood surged into his body, making him almost moan with pleasure. Words couldn't describe the feeling. Ada Wang moaned softly, her beautiful eyes widening before diffusing and finally closing. Her exposed skin, including her pretty face, first flushed a strange red before turning pale. Wang Yunxiao raised her head and exhaled a long, refreshing breath. He gently held Ada Wang, waiting for her to wake up. After all, Ada Wang had fused with a progenitor virus, and the energy contained in her blood was incomparable to that of an ordinary person. Unfortunately, for Wang Yunxiao, already at the third generation of zombie bloodline evolution, this was a drop in the bucket and would have no noticeable effect. Time slipped by unnoticed, and Ada Wang's transformation into a zombie body took nearly 10 hours, nearly twice as long as Rain's. This, in turn, proved that the supernatural power Ada Wang gained after merging with the original virus was truly extraordinary. Otherwise, there was no more plausible explanation. How is it? Wang Yunxiao asked softly, gazing into Ada Wang's gray-brown pupils. Unlike the wildness displayed by Lane, these pupils held a unique charm. Ada Wang didn't answer, her eyes meeting Wang Yunxiao's without blinking, a ripple of emotion gracing her gaze. The corners of her mouth curled slightly upward, radiating a breathtaking allure. For a moment, a subtle, alluring aura flowed between them. The next moment, before Wang Yunxiao could initiate anything, Ada Wang gently lifted her pale neck, her alluring red lips silently pressing against his. If Wang Yunxiao could still control himself in this state, he was truly unmanly. Initially, he tried to regain the initiative, but he quickly lost himself in Ada Wang's passion. As time went by, the charming atmosphere rolled endlessly, adding to the warmth and passion. This made it difficult for Lane and Child who were guarding outside. They had been standing outside Wang Yunxiao's door for nearly 10 hours. PFFT. Suddenly, Lane's pretty face flushed slightly, she spat lightly, and ran away quickly without looking back. Charles was stunned at first, then he felt something, shook his head with a smile, and strode away. How could the two of them not sense what was happening in the house with such keen perception? Here is the 4th update, and I will try to update 2 more later. The first subscription is very important, and I hope that old and new book friends can support this book. Please collect, subscribe, recommend, and vote. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. The decisive battle is about to begin. What? You said the superpower you gained is gravity, Wang Yunxiao exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with uncontrollable surprise as he gazed at the charming figure in his arms. That's gravity, one of the 4 fundamental forces of the universe. In Einstein's theory of relativity, gravity isn't a force, but an effect that bends space and time. It's infinite, even affecting the entire universe, because all food has weight. Ada Wang's eyes also sparkled with surprise. With a wave of her hand, a water cup on a nearby table floated toward her. Wang Yunxiao stared at Ada Wang silently, without reacting. It wasn't that Wang Yunxiao didn't trust Ada Wang, but rather that the surprise was too great and too sudden. Or was he worried that her grasp of supernatural powers wasn't yet fully grasped? There was no way, what she had just done, Lane could also do with telekinesis. Ada Wang rolled her eyes beautifully, wriggled out of Wang Yunxiao's arms, and stood up. In a breath, her feet were off the ground, floating in midair, though only a few dozen centimeters away. Meeting Ada Wang's glint of pride, how did Wang Yunxiao react? Well, this guy had already been captivated by her alluring, curvaceous figure. PFFT, Ada Wang gave Wang Yunxiao another coquettish roll of the eyes, carefully putting on her fiery red cheongsam. I'm going to find Rain, she said, leaving Wang Yunxiao, who had almost lost her virility, behind, swaying her long, alluring legs, and walking away. Oh, damn, at the mention of Rain, Wang Yunxiao's lust vanished completely, and a headache began to gnaw. Women, after all, have tempers. Although Rain's attitude had tacitly accepted Ada Wang's joining, jealousy was inevitable. Perhaps she wouldn't do anything to Ada Wang, but it was hard to say about Wang Yunxiao. No. She definitely wouldn't let him off easily. Despite the headache, what else could Wang Yunxiao do? He still needed to put in some effort to coax his woman. Meanwhile, he harbored a greater ambition, a threesome, a man's ultimate dream. Wang Yunxiao's fears proved correct, and for a long time, Lane hadn't been kind to him. As for his ultimate manly dream, there was no telling how long the wait would be. Ada Wang, however, under the guidance of Wang Yunxiao and Lane, quickly mastered the surging power within her and became increasingly proficient in controlling gravity. It's true, she possessed a remarkable talent in this area. Everything was progressing well, and Wang Yunxiao was brimming with pride. But the peaceful days couldn't last forever. That day, everyone gathered in the small conference room. Not only were Wang Yunxiao, acting as the half-host, Lane, Ada Wang, and Charles present, but also Alice, Jill, Leon, Luther, and the 2 tyrants, Chad and Matt. In the center of the conference table, the Red Queen's shadow captured everyone's attention. Why have you suddenly summoned us all here so urgently? What brings you here? I'm curious, who's controlling you now? Oswell? Or, Wang Yunxiao asked jokingly. My satellites show that there are only 4,472 people alive on Earth. However, they will cease to exist within 48 hours, Red Queen said expressionlessly, ignoring Wang Yunxiao's teasing. What do you need us to do? Alice couldn't help but ask. Everyone's expression froze, not only because of the harsh reality Red Queen had described, but also because of the horrific consequences. If everyone on Earth died, what would become of them? I want you to stop me. You must stop me, Red Queen said in a deep voice, her expression expressionless, as if she were discussing something insignificant. Umbrella has developed an airborne antiviral serum. If released, it will destroy the T-virus and anything infected with it, Red Queen elaborated. Everyone listened intently. Some already knew, some had a vague understanding, and some had no idea at all. Really? Can everything be over? Jill couldn't help but ask. Exactly, Red Queen nodded earnestly. Where is the serum? Alice got to the point. It's at the Hive base in Raccoon City, Red Queen replied. Wasn't it abandoned long ago? Alice asked, puzzled. That's Umbrella's main base. They've never abandoned it. Furthermore, they're constantly renovating and expanding it. Red Queen's answer was as Wang Yunxiao expected, but it certainly surprised many. You must reach Raccoon City within 48 hours, enter the Hive base, and stop me, perhaps due to some interruption. After leaving these words, Red Queen's image distorted and abruptly vanished. What should we do? Can she really be trusted? Jill looked at the crowd hesitantly. Indeed, no one could be sure. Was this a trap set by Oswell, meant to lure them there and then wipe them out? Everyone remained silent, not rushing to express their opinions. This decision affected not only them, but everyone present, and even the entire world. Ada Wang's lips twitched slightly, as if she were about to say something, but ultimately remained silent. Deep down, she still believed in the Red Queen, or rather, in Alicia. However, this time, she hadn't received any advance communication from Alicia, leaving her unsure how to proceed. Go. Even if there's only the slightest possibility, we must go, Alice said in a deep voice after a long pause. As she finished speaking, her expression became resolute. That's right. This time, we must go, Wang Yunxiao echoed Alice's decision. He was the only one present who understood that this would be the final showdown. Since Wang Yunxiao and Alice had both made their decision, no one objected, and they immediately began discussing the details. The entire Chicago base was now surrounded by countless zombies, not only on the ground but also in the air, where gigantic zombie monsters, some form of indeterminate evolution, lay doomed to fail. Even if they tried to escape, it would be no easy task. And who can say for sure, will Umbrella send someone to stop them? How many people would they send? And where would they stop them? These are all questions they must consider. Here are 5 chapters to go. I'll try to update one more later. Junzio is really trying his best. First subscriptions are very important. I hope new and old readers will support this book. Please add it to your collection, subscribe, recommend it, and vote. Chapter 90 Joining Forces to Defeat the Enemy. A transport plane slowly took off. It was the same one that had carried Wang Yunxiao and the others back from the Russian base, and it sailed away into the distant horizon. That's right, after much deliberation, Wang Yunxiao and the others had decided to take this transport plane to Raccoon City. The reason couldn't be more different, simply because it was the fastest. They truly didn't have much time left, only 48 hours. No. Now it wasn't even 48 hours. As for the dangers in the air, everyone believed that with Wang Yunxiao, Lane, and Ada Wang, they could still hold their own. Sure enough, before the transport plane even left the industrial park, 3 massive creatures approached. Their ferocious heads, sharp claws and tails, wingspans spanning over 10 meters, and 6 claws covered in needle-like spikes on their undersides. It was hard to tell what kind of monster these evolved from. But there was no doubt they were formidable. On the ground, Wang Yunxiao wouldn't have been concerned, but in the air, it was a different story. He couldn't fly. Lane and Ada Wang could fly, but they weren't sure they could handle such a massive beast. They didn't necessarily need to kill the 3 monsters, though, as long as they could hold them off until the transport plane gained speed, that should be enough. Could these 3 monsters be faster than the transport plane? While the transport plane lacked any weapons, it was Umbrella's most advanced product, and its speed was undoubtedly impressive. In a flash, Wang Yunxiao, Lane, and Ada Wang appeared outside the transport plane. Now, it was up to the 2 women to take Wang Yunxiao aloft. Roar, their appearance clearly angered the monsters, or perhaps they had spotted a tasty treat? They lunged at them, their sharp claws flashing with a chilling light. The figure flashed again, and Wang Yunxiao appeared directly on the back of the middle monster. The War God blade instantly appeared in his hand. With all his strength, he plunged it down hard. Swish, there was a sound like metallic friction, and the War God blade barely pierced the skin at the back of the monster's head. Wow, this monster's carapace was incredibly tough, even stronger than steel. Roar, the monster felt pain in the back of its head, or perhaps it was even more furious that Wang Yunxiao dared to stand behind it. It struggled desperately, flying high and low, and occasionally rolling,
trying to throw Wang Yunxiao away. Wang Yunxiao was helpless. What else could he do? After each throw, he could only flash back behind the monster and continue to fight it. At the same time, Wang Yunxiao kept an eye on the two women. Fortunately, the two women were using their telekinesis and gravity to deal with the other two monsters, so they should be fine for a while. Lane's telekinesis had become so powerful that even mid-air, her agility rivaled that of the monsters. Forget killing them, she could easily handle them for a short period. Meanwhile, while Ada Wong's gravity was undoubtedly stronger than telekinesis, she had only recently developed it and was far less proficient than Lane, making it more challenging to handle, though she could still hold her own for a while. However, one key factor differed from everyone's initial assumptions. With Wang Yunxiao and the other two holding them back, the transport plane would naturally accelerate and outrun the three monsters. But what would become of the three? Would they have to find another way to reach Raccoon City? That would take forever. After all, these three were the main force in the battle. Without them, the remaining forces had no hope of stopping Umbrella's frenzy. Without them, the three monsters would undoubtedly target the transport plane again, creating an unstoppable vicious cycle. The transport plane was helpless, hovering in midair, and the situation remained stalemated. Ultimately, Wang Yunxiao and his two companions had to quickly eliminate the three monsters. As they engaged the monster, Wang Yunxiao furiously searched for its weak spot. After several twists and turns, he finally found one. However, Wang Yunxiao was flung back by the monster again, but instead of instantly dodging behind it, he appeared beneath its belly. With a flash of sharp blade light, two of its abdominal claws were instantly slashed. Roar! The monster roared in pain, but Wang Yunxiao was unintentionally satisfied with the result. He had aimed his blade at the monster's belly, but it was blocked by its two abdominal claws. However, this also indirectly confirmed that the monster's belly was likely its weak spot, otherwise, it wouldn't have chosen to lose two abdominal claws rather than let Wang Yunxiao strike it. Fuck! Thinking he had found the monster's weakness, Wang Yunxiao, seizing an opportunity, repeated his old trick. However, as he dove beneath the monster's belly, he couldn't help but curse. The reason was simple: in less than a minute, the two abdominal claws he had previously severed had regrown. Needless to say, he was once again unsuccessful. He tried several more times, with the same result. This monster wasn't just incredibly resilient, but even more astonishingly, it possessed 6 abdominal claws. Wang Yunxiao's fastest attack only managed to sever 4. Desperate, Wang Yunxiao sought another strategy and began to collaborate with Lane. While the two couldn't be said to be on the same page, they were certainly well matched. After just a few brief exchanges, Lane understood his intentions. From there, it all depended on whether Lane could deliver on his wishes. Then, with the two men's deliberate enticements, the two monsters began to draw closer. Attack! With a sharp roar from Wang Yunxiao, Lane unleashed her telekinesis, simultaneously targeting both monsters. Splitting his attention, he could only control the two monsters for less than a second, but it was enough. Swish! A flash of sharp blade flashed. Puff! Smelly blood splattered as the monster's abdomen was completely ripped open, extending from its belly to its head. Wang Yunxiao used all his might in this strike, and the effect was unmistakable. Ignoring the rapidly falling monster, Wang Yunxiao flashed to Lane's side, wrapping his arms around her slender waist. Then, in another flash, he was behind the other monster. Though it had only been a moment, she'd definitely exhausted a lot, and she needed a break to recharge. Once Lane had recovered, things became much simpler. Controlling just one monster was no problem for her, and this one followed in the footsteps of the previous one. As for the final monster, its fate was even more certain. Here comes the 6th and final update of the day. Jun Zhao has finally lived up to his promise, completing 6 updates today. Now it all depends on the support of all the readers. First subscriptions are crucial, and we hope both new and old readers will support this book. Please bookmark, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 91 Arrogance or Confidence? A howling wind whipped the transport plane through the white clouds. Through the thick layer, the shattered ruins of Raccoon City loomed below. Dense swarms of zombies, like tiny black dots, swarmed in one direction, as if drawn by something. Boom! Suddenly, a violent explosion erupted not far from the side of the transport plane. Flames and gusts of air swept toward the transport, shaking the entire plane violently. Boom! Boom, boom. Before anyone on the transport plane could fully grasp the situation, a series of explosions erupted in all directions, blocking all its routes forward and backward. Amidst the intense flames and thick smoke, the transport plane struggled forward, dodging attacks with remarkable agility. Honestly, Ada Wong's piloting skills were quite good, even comparable to those so-called ace pilots. "Quick! Check what's going on," someone shouted anxiously. The explosion was deafening, and if he hadn't shouted, he feared everyone inside the cabin wouldn't have heard it. Ada Wang flashed an OK sign, and the reconnaissance footage instantly displayed a clear view of the ground. In fact, she needed no reminder, she had already begun operations the moment the transport plane came under attack. On the ground, at the forefront of the surging zombie wave, high-tech armored vehicles moved slowly and steadily. Behind the last armored vehicle, emaciated human remains were chained, attracting the zombie horde to pursue them. "Damn it! A bastard," Lane cursed furiously. While the others didn't share her excitement, their expressions were grim. "Lane and I will take care of them." "You guys rush to the hive," Wang Yunxiao said in a deep voice, his words filled with determination and unquestionable conviction. And then, without waiting for anyone else to react, he and Lane vanished from the transport plane. High in the sky, two black dots plummeted toward the ground, without parachutes or any attempt to slow down. They were Wang Yunxiao and Lane. Parachute packs and the like were unnecessary after Wang Yunxiao's quick escape. Sure enough, over 1,000 meters from the ground, the two figures flashed and found themselves firmly atop one of the armored vehicles. Lane grabbed the vehicle's hatch, and a barrage of bullets erupted. However, both had been prepared and dodged. The next moment, they vanished from above the vehicle, reappearing inside. Facing the still dazed soldiers, the two showed no mercy, slaughtering them all in a matter of seconds. Lane scrambled to the driver's seat and, with a few maneuvers, swung the vehicle's guns, aiming them at the roof of another vehicle behind them. Boom! With a dull roar, the vehicle in front was blasted skyward, a cloud of flames and thick smoke billowing into the air. Boom! 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 The next moment, shells rained down on the armored vehicle they were on, instantly reducing it to a pile of scrap metal. Fortunately, Wang Yunxiao had anticipated this and had already evaded the enemy with Lane. The two of them then worked seamlessly, destroying one armored vehicle after another, leaving only the last one of the massive convoy. There was no way around Wang Yunxiao's evasion. Despite the armored vehicle's formidable firepower, their attacks were useless if they couldn't reach the two of them, forcing them to passively take the brunt of the attack. The last few armored vehicles didn't even need the two of them to attack, the moment they landed on top of them. They were blasted to pieces by shells. When the two of them flashed onto the last vehicle, they found two men already waiting for them, the two deputy commanders of the convoy. Their expressions were impassive, but they didn't immediately launch an attack. Seeing this, Wang Yunxiao and Lane exchanged a glance and decided not to rush into action either, waiting to see what these guys were up to. Finally, we meet, the hatch opened, and a familiar figure climbed out of the armored vehicle. Okay, another Oswald clone. Both men remained silent, watching the newly awakened Isaac, acting like a fool. The Lord sent a flood to cleanse the earth, bringing torrential rain for 40 days and 40 nights. Our method may take longer, but the result is the same. A world inheriting righteousness and purity is about to be born. Isaac spoke passionately, his arms wide open as if embracing the entire world. Well, full marks for this fool. Nonsense, Wang Yunxiao watched with rapt interest, but Lane was genuinely disgusted. Not wanting to see Isaac's disgusting expression again, she suddenly lunged forward, swinging her fist. Bang! With a dull thud, Lane's fist was intercepted mid-flight by the two deputy commanders. Bang! 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 Then, within the cramped space atop the armored vehicle, the three engaged in a fierce battle. It was obvious that these two deputy commanders were no ordinary people, having been transformed by the virus. Otherwise, even outnumbered, they would never have been able to fight Lane to this extent. In just over 10 hours, we'll arrive in Raccoon City. That's where it all began, and where it will end, but the three of them paid no attention to Isaac, who continued to play it safe. His pretense was truly unwavering, a constant companion. You're right, but it's a pity you can't see it, Wang Yunxiao shrugged, a half-smile on his face. What? You think you can stop me? Isaac said dismissively, his eyes filled with nothing but contempt. No, no, no. You overestimate yourself. From the beginning, our target wasn't a clone of you. Wang Yunxiao was speechless, looking defeated. Honestly, he was curious what gave him such confidence. What are you talking about? That's impossible. I'm not a clone. Isaac's expression hardened, and he roared in anger. But soon, as if he had thought of something, he returned to normal. Hey, why does no one believe the truth? Wang Yunxiao spread his hands pretending to be helpless. Damn it. Don't think you can irritate me like this, Isaac snorted coldly. Although he said so, his body was very honest and strode towards Wang Yunxiao. Tisk, you still won't be irritated. Is this the legendary saying one thing and doing another? Wang Yunxiao didn't care at all. He looked at Isaac leisurely and even didn't forget to complain. Thanks to Sunday Saint for the reward of 588 starting coins. Thanks Trilogy for the reward of 100 starting coins. Please collect, subscribe, recommend and vote. Chapter 92 Oswell finally appears. Isaac took a step forward, and his entire figure instantly transformed. His size ballooned, reaching nearly 3 meters in height. His shirt ripped completely, revealing his granite hard red skin. His hands transformed into a pair of massive, sharp claws, and a tyrannical aura emanated from him. Holy crap! What the hell is this? Wang Yunxiao was genuinely shocked. Just by his aura, he could tell that the Isaac before him was far superior to the tyrants, nemesis goddesses, and giant lickers he'd encountered before. Well, it was unclear when the overall combat power of the Resident Evil world had skyrocketed. Those once mediocre characters in the original series were now incredibly powerful. Clearly, this was all a butterfly effect caused by him. If Alice had continued to fight alone, she'd probably be finished before even reaching the final boss. Boom! With a dull thud, Isaac leaped high into the air, pouncing on Wang Yunxiao like a hungry tiger on a sheep. Wang Yunxiao, intent on testing Isaac's strength, didn't dodge. The War God's blade instantly appeared in his hand, slashing upwards. Swish! The sharp sound of metal scraping as blade and claw collided, sending sparks flying. Isaac's claws were incredibly strong, surprisingly just as strong as the War God's blade. Then, Wang Yunxiao felt an unparalleled force bearing down on him, surprisingly no less powerful than his own. Having achieved his goal and having roughly assessed Isaac's strength, Wang Yunxiao abandoned his confrontation and abruptly vanished. When he reappeared, he was behind him, slashing down with the War God's blade. Though Isaac was caught off guard and dodged, his next reaction was quick. He whipped his right arm back, his claws blocking the War God's blade. Ding! With a crisp sound, the War God's blade separated from the beast's claws at the slightest touch. Wang Yunxiao vanished again, reappearing silently behind Isaac and casually slashing. Before Isaac could raise his claws to meet them, he dove to his other side and slashed out with another diagonal strike. Thus, Wang Yunxiao completely avoided direct confrontation with Isaac, always seeking other opportunities when he launched his claws. Although he couldn't inflict any substantial damage, he was firmly at a disadvantage. As the saying goes, a long defense leads to loss. Wang Yunxiao seized Isaac's weakness and struck him firmly in the back with the War God's blade. The sharp blade flashed, and the War God's blade struck Isaac's back, but it was like a dull knife on leather, barely slicing through the skin and leaving a shallow scar. This defense was truly insane, not much worse than the 3 monsters they had encountered upon leaving the Chicago base. Despite this, Wang Yunxiao showed no impatience or worry. If he wanted to, Isaac would never be able to strike him. In his eyes, Isaac was ultimately just a sitting duck. Wang Yunxiao's attacks continued, the War God's blade slashing faster and faster. Rays of brilliant light enveloped Isaac, leaving no gaps. But these were only superficial. A closer look would have been astonishing to discover that Isaac's wounds had remained the same throughout, each one deep enough to penetrate the bone, his internal organs faintly visible. It turned out that each of Wang Yunxiao's strikes was purposeful and precise. Fortunately, Isaac's recovery was only average, which allowed him to achieve such a quick victory. Puff! Blood splattered as the War God's blade pierced Isaac's chest. But it was clear that this was not enough to kill Isaac completely. However, Wang Yunxiao's assault didn't stop there. He whipped out the God of War blade and swung it, decapitating Isaac's neck. Puff! Isaac's ungainly head flew high into the air, his eyes wide with disbelief until his death. Plop! Isaac's headless body fell involuntarily from the top of the armored vehicle, sending up a cloud of dust. The zombies chasing the armored vehicle immediately swarmed over it, completely engulfing it. Elsewhere, facing Lane's relentless onslaught, the two deputy commanders of the armored convoy continued to struggle. Though at a disadvantage, they never showed any signs of defeat. Even Isaac's death seemed to have no effect on them. Unfortunately, their victory was over. With Wang Yunxiao charging into the fray with his sword in hand, they had no chance of resistance. The last two armored vehicles fell into the hands of Wang Yunxiao and Lane, their speed noticeably increasing, leaving the zombie horde far behind. As for the living people used to lure the zombie horde, they had already perished in the recent battle, succumbing to the zombies' vicious bites. Meanwhile, far away in Raccoon City, at the Hive base, the battle, along with the transport planes hurtling towards Raccoon City, were all displayed in vivid detail on a massive surveillance screen. "It seems we really underestimated them," Oswald, the real boss, muttered to himself, his eyes never leaving the screen. More accurately, they never left Wang Yunxiao on the screen. "Is there anything I can do?" Albert whispered. As Oswald's loyal lackey, he was naturally indispensable here. "Raise the base's security level to maximum, no entry or exit. Also, bring Ms. Marcus here," Oswald pondered. "Yes," Albert accepted the order and turned to make the arrangements. "Wang Yunxiao, are you the biggest variable?" Oswald muttered softly, regret flickering in his eyes. To be honest, he had never taken Wang Yunxiao seriously, but now he realized that Wang Yunxiao was his biggest obstacle. Had he known this would happen, he wouldn't have allowed Wang Yunxiao and the others to live in peace until now. "But no one can stop me, not even you." The regret in Oswald's eyes quickly transformed into fierce determination. At this point, not only were Wang Yunxiao and the others left with no choice, but he, too, had no escape route. Meanwhile, Ada Wong, Alice, and the others arrived in Raccoon City and encountered a group of survivors in an abandoned building not far from the Hive base. Among them were Claire and the others, who had been separated in Arcadia and were old acquaintances of Alice's. This familiarity naturally eased communication. While most of the survivors were skeptical of Alice's apocalyptic claims, this didn't prevent the two sides from reaching a temporary partnership. Please bookmark, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 93: Entering the Hive. The abandoned building where Alice and the others were located wasn't far from the entrance to the Hive base, but to get through, they first had to find a way to eliminate the zombies gathered below. There weren't just dozens or hundreds, but thousands. But no matter how difficult it was, they wouldn't give up. They had to do whatever it took to overcome it. So, everyone sprang into action, making thorough preparations. Time ticked by, and the 48 hours Red Queen had given them dwindled. By the time they were ready, night had already fallen. Severely short of heavy firepower, they resorted to the age-old method of throwing gasoline barrels. And surprisingly, the results were remarkable. The barrels exploded among the zombies, setting fire to a vast area. They even resorted to using themselves as bait to lure the zombies into the abandoned building, ultimately burning the entire structure down to the ground, ultimately annihilating the horde in one fell swoop. However, countless lives were lost in the process. Fortunately, Wang Yunxiao and Lane had eliminated Isaac's armored convoy, otherwise their success would have been impossible. Having escaped the abandoned building and broken free from the zombie siege, Alice and the others didn't hesitate, rushing towards the entrance of the Hive base. However, they were met by a swarm of zombie dogs. Each of these zombie dogs might not have been a threat, at most only slightly stronger than the zombies, but their sheer numbers were overwhelming. The people trapped within the zombie dogs opened fire without hesitation, their dense stream of bullets forming a web of fire, but some would inevitably slip through. The zombie dogs that managed to break through the fire didn't even need to bite them in the flesh, simply inflicting a single wound was enough to steadily reduce their numbers. Whoosh, boom, just as everyone was becoming increasingly desperate, missiles, trailing long flames, suddenly slammed into the zombie dogs. The massive aftermath of the explosions unsteadied even those who were not close enough. A barrage of intense fire followed, truly devastating, sending each zombie dog flung several meters away. Under the gaze of the survivors, an armored vehicle barreled down, like a steel behemoth, ruthlessly crushing the zombie dogs. Atop the vehicle, Wang Yunxiao stood proudly, a heavy machine gun in hand, its muzzle spitting flames. "You're here." As the vehicle approached, before it even stopped, Ada Wang and the others hurried over, their faces thick with excitement. "Yes. Are you all alright?" Wang Yunxiao nodded gently, looking at the beleaguered crowd, especially Ada Wang and Charles, the few he cared about most, with a concerned look. No, Ada Wang answered for everyone. Of course, she only represented a limited number of people. As for the armed group of survivors, she couldn't represent them, as they had already been decimated. Damn it. Those monsters are impossible to completely kill. The roof of the vehicle was lifted, and Lane leaped out, muttering a curse under her breath. The armored vehicle was equipped with a state-of-the-art thermal imaging system, naturally capturing the surroundings with unparalleled clarity. Let's go. Entering the hive base should help us shake them off. Wang Yunxiao's expression grew serious, and without further delay, he led everyone towards the hive base. They raced along, and with Wang Yunxiao leading the way, they finally made it into the hive base before the zombie dogs caught up. As expected, the zombie dogs didn't dare pursue them into the base. Boom! As the base gate slammed shut, it became clear to everyone that the journey ahead would be extremely hostile. Mr. Wang, Alice, you're finally here. Thank you for your trust in me. Before they had gone far, they encountered the virtual image of the Red Queen. Shortly after the T-virus was released, a secret file was uploaded to my database. It contained the minutes of the meeting of Umbrella's Supreme Intelligence Command. The spread of the virus was deliberately allowed by Umbrella, who murdered over 7 billion people, without anyone asking. Red Queen unleashed the entire story, playing a video as evidence. Damn it. Umbrella deliberately released the virus. They're the ones who deserve to be purged, and they all deserve to go to hell. Many in the crowd, unaware of this, immediately erupted in curses. This also reassured the survivors, who had been skeptical of Alice, and they resolved to help her prevent this catastrophe. You have 53 minutes left. Humanity's last settlement will be destroyed, and Earth will be left with no survivors. Therefore, you must release the super serum before then, or Oswell's ambition will be realized. Without giving anyone much time to absorb this harsh reality, Red Queen continued in a heavy voice. One last thing. There's an informant for Oswell among you, but I don't know who it is. In short, be extremely careful. Red Queen gave everyone one final warning before the image vanished. Everyone looked at each other, unable to conceal their suspicion. From that moment on, the seeds of suspicion were quietly planted in many people's hearts, and an invisible crack began to form. Okay, no amount of suspicion here will help. From now on, we must act as a team as possible and not give that so-called informant any chance to cause trouble. Finally, Wang Yunxiao stepped forward, temporarily stabilizing the troops' morale. However, the seeds of suspicion had already been sown, and how could they be easily dispelled? Passing through the long corridor, at the end, they were once again blocked by a massive alloy ventilation fan. I'll do it. Ada Wang stepped out from the crowd, slightly extending her hands. With a thud, gravity activated its full force. Crack! With a loud bang, the entire ventilation fan was blown away. Everyone was stunned, their gazes towards Ada Wang filled with complex emotions. Perhaps, in their minds, if Ada Wang was the informant, would they still be able to deal with it? Another obstacle was easily overcome, but the road ahead would not be so simple. Various mechanisms and traps, heavily armed soldiers, biological weapons like tyrants, nemesis, and giant lickers, coupled with the seeds of suspicion planted in each other's hearts, easily separated everyone, each fighting their own battles. Wang Yunxiao, Lane, Ada Wang, and the others were especially vulnerable, as they inevitably became the focus of special attention. It would take more than a moment to escape their current predicament. 3 more chapters to come. Please bookmark, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 94, Secret Background. Perhaps it was Oswell's deliberate plan, but among the crowd, Ada Wang, Alice, and a survivor named Doug were the first to break through the numerous obstacles and reach the elevator platform. Boom! As the elevator platform continued to descend, the three of them saw a strangely empty space, unlike anything Alice had ever seen in the hive base. Within this empty space, layer upon layer of pavilions, more than a dozen levels, each filled with densely packed coffin-like equipment. What are these? Alice whispered quietly to herself. Although she was asking, she didn't expect anyone to answer her question. Cryogenic storage, what Umbrella High Command calls a Noah's Ark, awaiting the apocalypse. And this is their safe place, unexpectedly, Ada Wang replied in a gloomy voice. My God, there must be thousands of them here, Doug couldn't help but exclaim. I guess these Noah's Arks are only for the rich and powerful, Alice sneered, her eyes filled with disgust and contempt. Ada Wang remained silent, clearly agreeing with Alice's words. Even Doug fell silent, his eyes flickering, his thoughts shimmering. Click, passing through the supposedly safe haven, the elevator platform trembled slightly and stopped in a dimly lit space. "Let's go," Alice, without hesitation, leaped from the platform and strode forward. Ada Wong and Doug, not wanting to be left behind, quickly followed. The three of them made their way through the dimly lit space unimpeded, encountering no danger, but were blocked by an underground river of unknown depth. Just as they were debating whether to swim across, a narrow walkway suddenly appeared before them, as if offering them passage. Passing through the walkway, the three arrived at a luxurious yet cozy room, where they finally met their ultimate target, Oswell, his lackey Albert, and Militia, sitting expressionlessly in a wheelchair. "Ms. Marcus," Ada Wong whispered, quickly approaching Alicia, staring warily at Oswell and the others. Throughout this journey, Oswell and the other two offered no resistance. Wasn't Oswell's reason for ordering Albert to bring Alicia here so he could contain Wang Yunxiao and the others? Wang Yunxiao hadn't arrived yet, but being able to contain Ada Wang was a plus. Alice cast a curious glance at Alicia. This was their first official meeting, but she felt a strange tinge of disbelief. "The bad kid has returned, and a disobedient daughter," Oswell observed with fascination, his words tinged with meaning. He wasn't wrong. Alice had been created by him, intent on one day replacing Alicia. Calling her daughter wasn't an exaggeration. "Are you Oswell?" Alice asked expressionlessly, quickly turning her attention back to Oswell. This was also their first official meeting. "Yes. Don't just stand there. Come in. After all, you only have 13 minutes to save the world," Oswell said pretentiously, even checking his watch. "You're a bastard." Alice was furious and subconsciously raised the gun. No. If I were you, put the weapon down, preferably on the table." Oswell raised a finger and shook it a few times. This attitude made Alice so angry that she almost shot him. "Why should I do this?" Alice still retained a bit of rationality and was not driven by the anger in her heart. She asked coldly. "This should be what you want, right? Super serum that can cure everything." Oswell took out a bottle of emerald green potion from his arms. It was the super serum that Alice had been thinking about. This time, Alice really didn't dare to act rashly. She stared at the super serum in Oswell's hand without blinking. "You have to understand, I only have one bottle of this super serum. And we're in a sealed room 800 meters underground. If I accidentally drop it here, the super serum won't spread. And your dream will be instantly shattered." Oswell stood up and walked around aimlessly, the super serum held between two fingers, shaking it back and forth, his threat clear. Clang! Alice had no choice but to give in, dropping the gun on the table without a word. "Good girl," Oswell smiled with satisfaction. "Claire will be disappointed." Alice had no time to pay attention to Oswell. Behind her, Doug had not lowered his gun, but pointed it at her. "In a few minutes, she'll be dead. Or perhaps, she's already dead," Doug said coldly. From the beginning, he was only Oswell's informant, and his flirtation with Claire was just a way to prevent himself from easily arousing suspicion. "I'm sorry to disappoint you," but before Doug could finish, he was interrupted by a cold female voice. Wasn't that the Claire they were talking about? However, Carlisle's arrival didn't alleviate their current disadvantage. It was clear that she wasn't even a match for Albert, who had been fused with a T-virus. "Sorry, dear, please put your weapon down now. And you, put down the detonator too." Quickly, Doug said coldly, not even glancing at Claire, raising his gun towards Alice. The two women had no choice but to obey, their faces livid. "Thank you. You did well, Doug." Oswell was pleased with Doug's performance. In life, people will constantly strive and fight until death. As long as they believe they are real, not just a pathetic, worthless clone. Oswell poured himself a drink before adding a half-smile. Feeling confident of victory, he began to savor the fruits of his victory. "What do you mean?" Alice's expression changed, and she asked in a hushed voice. "I mean, are you sure you're not someone else's clone? Look at our Ms. Marcus." Oswell took a sip of his wine, glanced at Alice mockingly, and then turned his gaze to Militia. Alice remained silent, looking at Militia in disbelief. Although she was reluctant to believe it, a voice in her heart kept telling her that this was true. Please collect, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 95 Final Battle. Oh, by the way, I haven't introduced you yet. This is Alicia Marcus, the daughter of my former closest partner and co-owner of Umbrella. She's also a thorn in my side, someone I've always wanted to eliminate. Looking at Alicia, Oswell's eyes flickered with a strange expression, a mix of nostalgia and murderous intent. Alice remained silent, her expression complex. Perhaps it was a psychological effect, but at that moment, she could vaguely see many similarities between Alicia's aged features and herself. Time is running out, Alice. You must kill him quickly. Alicia didn't rush to persuade Alice or further try to win her over, but simply warned her in a hoarse voice. What a shame, Alicia, you're still so naive. Oswell sighed in mock disappointment before returning his gaze to Alice. James created the T-virus to save her, but the effects didn't last. I've been waiting for her death. I couldn't wait any longer, so I created you, Alice. Based on her, Oswell's words were like the whisper of a demon, like a needle piercing Alice's heart. I'm not a clone, Alice murmured softly. Although she was already 70% convinced, she still refused to accept it. Really? You've always been troubled, right? Why don't you remember anything about your childhood? Your father, your mother? Oswell's words further shattered Alice's fragile resistance. Memory loss, Alice said this, and even she couldn't convince herself, so she couldn't say any more. No. You don't have those memories because you didn't have a childhood. In fact, before I created you 10 years ago, you had nothing. Oswell looked Alice straight in the eye, enjoying the feeling of toying with his opponent. I know who I am, Alice growled unwillingly, her eyes meeting Oswell's without blinking, her gaze unblinking. Yet, she couldn't conceal the guilt lurking deep within her. I don't think so. From the beginning, you've been a puppet. Even if the strings are broken, after you've lingered for a while, you can't escape your predetermined fate. Oswell shrugged, his words radiating immense confidence. You're lying, Alice continued her final struggle. I'm afraid he didn't. You were created in Ms. Marcus's image, just like me. My appearance and voice are based on videos of Ms. Marcus as a child, and your genetic structure is based on her DNA. So, I'm her as a child, and you're her as an adult. The Red Queen's appearance and these words were the straw that broke the camel's back. No. You can do more, better than I can. It was my weakness that allowed all this to happen, but you are different. You are strong, brave, and capable of putting an end to it all. Alicia suddenly interrupted the Red Queen, looking Alice straight in the eye and speaking earnestly. Time is running out, Alice. After a pause, Alicia solemnly warned once more. Ah, how touching. You are united by hatred, but Alice, I am always one step ahead of you. In the end, you can do nothing, save no one. The world will still be cleansed, and I will write the apocalypse myself. Oswell looked as if he was already imagining a beautiful future, even proclaiming himself the creator god. Meanwhile, Alice had regained her composure, forcing herself to stop dwelling on the matter of the clones, or perhaps time simply didn't allow her to dwell on it. She took 2 imperceptible steps forward, her eyes scanning the ice pick, wine bottle, and pen in the ice bucket on the table. She rapidly calculated in her mind whether she could pick them up and defeat Oswell in one fell swoop. Every time she calculated, she succeeded. Don't waste your energy. You can't possibly get the ice pick, the wine bottle, or the pen, Oswell barked, exposing Alice's thoughts. Though lost in his endless fantasies of the future, he never relaxed his vigilance, running through his own deductions again and again. The scenarios Alice imagined, he too, deduced, and even further developed a perfect solution. Alice's body trembled slightly, and she froze in place. Her eagerness immediately cooled. If Oswell were alone, she would certainly have the courage to fight, but she had to remember that Albert was watching her warily. Against 2 men, she had no chance of success. However, just as the situation reached a stalemate, with neither Alice nor Ada Wong able to break free, a figure suddenly rushed in, quickly assessing the situation within the room and setting its sights squarely on Albert. Albert hastily responded, yet held his own. For a moment, the 2 figures, almost invisible to the naked eye, clashed fiercely. Freed from any worries, Alice hesitated and rushed towards Oswell, not even reaching for the weapon on the table. Hold. Don't move. Before Oswell could react, Doug leaped out, shouting. Seeing Alice ignored him, he pulled the trigger. But the next moment, Doug froze. His rifle remained unresponsive. He tried several more times, with the same result. It turned out that Alice had suspected him long before entering the room and had unloaded the gun while he was not paying attention. Bang! A gunshot rang out. Before Doug could even ask his question, a bullet pierced his forehead. He glanced sideways with difficulty. The shooter was, of course, Claire, who had long hated him. Claire, without even glancing at Doug, aimed her gun at Oswell. But she was already entangled with Alice, making it difficult for her to act rashly. Bang, 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 Alice unleashed punch after punch, each easily parried by Oswell. Moreover, after only a few rounds, she was already losing ground. Meanwhile, Rain was still locked in a fierce battle with Albert, and it looked like a decisive battle wouldn't be easy. Not far away, Ada Wong, though afraid to leave Alicia's side, considered using gravity to aid the two women. However, both Oswell and Albert were too fast for her to lock onto. Please bookmark, subscribe, recommend, and vote. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 End and Beginning. Time ticked by, leaving only a few minutes for everyone. However, neither Alice nor Lane had managed to defeat either Oswell or Albert. Lane was doing relatively well. While she hadn't yet taken down Albert, she maintained a firm grip on the initiative. Meanwhile, Alice was having a difficult time even managing to maintain her position, let alone defeat Oswell. Bang! In an instant, Albert, moving at full speed, leaving only a series of shadows in the air, was suddenly sent flying backwards. Looking back at Albert's original position, Wang Yunxiao suddenly appeared, arriving just in time. Lane and Wang Yunxiao worked seamlessly together. Before Albert could even land, their telekinesis was fully activated, pinning him in midair. Not only Lane, but Ada Wang also seized the opportunity, unleashing her full force of gravity. The simultaneous forces of attraction and repulsion acted upon Albert, leaving him with no chance of resistance. Swish, a sharp blade flashed, blood splattered, and Albert's head flew off, leaving only the headless corpse tumbling heavily to the ground. Wang, Lane and Ada Wang both strode towards Wang Yunxiao in surprise. Now that Wang Yunxiao had arrived, Ada Wang naturally no longer worried about Alicia's safety. It can't be helped. Those monsters were a bit difficult, and it took us a while. Wang Yunxiao smiled faintly, his tone as calm as if he were discussing a trivial matter. But Lane knew that those monsters he was referring to were not just a few difficult monsters, but a combination of 3 tyrants, 2 furies, and a giant licker. Lane had been with Wang Yunxiao the entire time, but Wang Yunxiao, fearing something might happen with Alice, had sent her ahead, leaving him alone to cover the rear. You're finally here. In just a few minutes, humanity's last outpost will collapse. Alicia, steering her wheelchair, slowly approached. What are we waiting for? Let's finish him off quickly. Wang Yunxiao shrugged, appearing unconcerned. It was true. With him, Lane, and Ada Wang here, plus Alice, Oswell couldn't escape even if he had wings. Bang, 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 amidst the muffled footsteps, Charles, flanked by Chad and Matt, appeared at the doorway. They had dispatched the 3 furies blocking his path, completely sealing Oswell's only escape route, though he had little chance of escaping in the first place. Bang! Before Wang Yunxiao could finish his words, Alice flew backwards. Oswell, aware of Wang Yunxiao and the others' arrival, dared not delay any further. Seizing the perfect moment, he slapped Alice away with a single blow. In a flash, Wang Yunxiao arrived directly in front of Oswell, slashing down with the blade of the god of war. There was no skill or flourish, only one word: quick. He didn't want to listen to any of Oswell's nonsense, nor did he want to give him any chance to stall for time. Simultaneously, Lane and Ada Wang unleashed their telekinesis and gravity, targeting Oswell and pinning him down. While Wang Yunxiao alone wouldn't have been a problem in taking him down, it would still take time, and time was what they lacked most. No, Oswell tried to strike back or dodge, but suddenly found he had lost control of his body, not even a tiny limb. He let out a terrified cry, his expression contorted with utter terror. Swish, the sharp blade flashed again, and Oswell suffered the same fate as Albert, being beheaded by Wang Yunxiao. Puff, Oswell's head, etched with terror, resentment, and disbelief, flew high into the air, blood spurting several feet into the air. Wang Yunxiao rummaged through Oswell's arms, easily finding the emerald green super serum and casually tossing it to Alice. With that, his deal with Alicia was complete, All he needed was the Red Queen source code. Alice, have you thought it through? If you release the super serum, it will kill all living things infected with the T-virus, including you. Alicia looked away, no longer looking at the man who had manipulated her life. She stared at Alice without blinking. I know. Alice crouched down, grasped Alicia's old, withered hand, and nodded solemnly. She wanted to say something more, but the words faltered. Alice, you can't. Claire strode over and tried to persuade her. I have no choice, Alice interrupted with a slight shake of her head. There must be another way, Claire said unwillingly, unable to bear the thought of Alice sacrificing herself. Although Lane didn't offer any words of advice, the concern and worry in her eyes were no less than Claire's. You know, not really, Alice smiled calmly and slowly stood up. She seemed to have already put her life and death aside. You have 3 minutes and 33 seconds left. At this moment, Red Queen suddenly jumped out again, as if issuing a final ultimatum to the others. Let's go. Alice gave Alicia one last deep look, then strode away without looking back. The others followed closely behind. Wang Yunxiao deliberately stayed behind, only smiling with satisfaction when Alicia handed him a small black metal box, knowing full well that it must contain Red Queen's source code. Approaching Charles, Wang Yunxiao skillfully stored the two tyrants, Chad and Matt, in his personal storage. When the super serum was released, these two would be the first to be eliminated. Furthermore, until they left the Resident Evil world, they could not be released again. Alice, Claire called softly from the Hive base's exit, as if she were about to offer some further words of advice. However, at this point, there was no time for further hesitation. Not only was time running out, but the endless horde of zombies was already surging towards them like a tide. Alice shook her head lightly, saying nothing more, and slowly released the super serum in her grasp. Pop! The super serum splattered to the ground, its emerald green liquid scattering in the wind. The zombies bore the brunt of the impact, falling one by one, spreading outward, followed by Alice, eyes slightly closed, as she slowly collapsed to the ground. Alice, Lane, reacting quickly, hugged Alice, whispering softly, "Don't worry. She'll be fine." Wang Yunxiao patted Lane's shoulder, his voice soothing. Although his tone wasn't harsh, the trust he'd cultivated over time eased her worries. "It's over," Wang Yunxiao murmured softly, gazing at the horizon. "Not only has the T-virus spin ended, but it also means that all his goals in this world have been achieved." In the distant east, a rising sun slowly rises, heralding the arrival of a brand new beginning. 3 more chapters are here. Please bookmark, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 97 Return to the Marvel Universe. Finally back, standing on the streets of New York, Wang Yunxiao couldn't help but sigh. Great. Now Wang Yunxiao had returned to the Marvel Universe. Wang Yunxiao's judgment had been correct. That mysterious dimension, those mysterious nebulae, truly allowed him to travel between different dimensions. Furthermore, Wang Yunxiao's initial concerns were unfounded. With his return to the Marvel Universe, the smaller nebulae representing the Resident Evil world hadn't disappeared. This not only meant he could return to the Resident Evil world at any time, but also, in a sense, gave him the support of an entire world. Although it was only a devastated apocalypse, it would one day be revitalized. And this was just the beginning. Wang Yunxiao believed that in the future, he would possess more worlds like this, becoming his greatest trump card. Meanwhile, Lane, Ada Wong, Charles, little Angela, and the two tyrants, Chad and Matt, all lay peacefully within Wang Yunxiao's personal space. There was no way around it. To the Marvel Universe, they were all unregistered. Not only was their identity registration a problem, but Wang Yunxiao was also concerned they would be rejected by the cosmic will or targeted by some cosmic powerhouse. Forget about anything else. On Earth, there was such a being, the Sorcerer Supreme, the Ancient One. He couldn't afford to be careless. In fact, before returning to the Marvel Universe, Wang Yunxiao had a heartfelt conversation with Alice and the others, intending to bring them along. This wasn't just out of admiration for Alice and the others. Putting aside Alice's mastery of the T-virus, the others weren't far behind either. Perhaps their strength was far less, but their ability to survive such an apocalyptic world was a testament in itself, wasn't it? Furthermore, Wang Yunxiao genuinely felt compassion for them. That world was truly unsuitable for human survival. While the T-virus would eventually fade, who knew how long that would take, or what changes might arise in the intervening time? However, Alice and the others ultimately refused, determined to stay and rebuild that world, no matter how arduous the process. Wang Yunxiao offered no further comment, merely his sincere best wishes. However, after parting ways with Alice and the others, Wang Yunxiao and his companions didn't immediately return to the Marvel Universe. Instead, they remained in the Resident Evil universe for over half a year. While this world was now shattered and largely devoid of life, it contained numerous exploitable resources, such as gold, high-tech weapons, and precious scientific research materials. In short, during that short period, they had traversed nearly the entire world, unceremoniously scooping up all of them. With all this, Wang Yunxiao had reason to believe that upon returning to the Marvel Universe, he would have no shortage of the necessary capital and technical support to establish his own faction. It was now 1956, and unknowingly, he had already been away from the Marvel Universe for over a decade. This led Wang Yunxiao to conclude that the flow of time in the two dimensions was essentially the same. He wondered if this was also true in other dimensions. Without stopping for long on the streets of New York, Wang Yunxiao returned directly to the property he had purchased long ago. Uninhabited for over a decade, the place naturally fell into disrepair, its rooms coated in a thick layer of dust. Wang Yunxiao had no choice but to hire a housekeeping company to thoroughly clean and renovate the house, a task that lasted until evening. Wang Yunxiao ordered another sumptuous dinner and then released Rain, Ada Wong, Charles, and Angela from their personal space. Fortunately, the rejection of the cosmic will that Wang Yunxiao had feared didn't occur. Thus, the four shared their first dinner since arriving in the Marvel Universe. For the next few days, the four remained in the house, giving Wang Yunxiao ample time to sort out their identities while silently awaiting the arrival of the Ancient One. However, Wang Yunxiao's concerns were clearly overblown. The Ancient One remained silent. Perhaps, to a cosmic power like her, they truly meant nothing. With their identities resolved, the four of them stopped staying confined to their house and began to formally explore the Marvel Universe, leaving their mark on it. While New York during this period might not have been as prosperous as the world of Resident Evil, they still shared many similarities. Even so, they were still filled with a sense of novelty. After all, it was a completely new dimension for them. Over the next few days, they had explored almost all of New York, and even the surrounding area, gaining a preliminary understanding of the city during this period. It's worth noting that Wang Yunxiao's old friend Howard, who founded the Stark Corporation, has now become a leading U.S. military-industrial complex and one of the largest commercial empires. This guy is truly amazing. Although Wang Yunxiao knew this was inevitable, he was still deeply impressed by Howard's achievements in just over a decade. Upon hearing this, Lane, Ada Wang, and Charles all looked surprised, their curiosity piqued at the Howard Wang Yunxiao had mentioned. Regardless, achieving such a significant accomplishment was truly admirable. Next, we should work hard to build our own business empire. Wang Yunxiao's blazing gaze slowly swept over the three faces. Of course. But don't count on me. You know, this isn't my forte. Lane spread her hands and turned her gaze to Ada Wang and Charles. Lane knew that this business empire would be a vital asset to Wang Yunxiao's success, and that she would shoulder significant responsibilities within it. However, she was self-aware and wouldn't let any jealousy creep in. Don't look at me either. I'm certainly committed to research, but managing a company isn't my forte either. Charles waved his hands repeatedly, turning his gaze to Ada Wang. That's right. This is definitely the right thing for Ada. Wang Yunxiao smiled and made the decision. No problem, leave it to me. Ada Wang took the lead, her words filled with strong confidence. But, what should we name our company? Ada Wang then asked curiously. Lane and Charles also cast curious glances. Please bookmark, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 98: The Beginning of Umbrella. Umbrella. Let's call it Umbrella. It'll serve as a commemoration of the past decade, Wang Yunxiao said without hesitation, clearly having a plan in mind. But, Lane, Ada Wang, and Charles were delighted at first, then frowned slightly. Their experiences in the Resident Evil world were naturally unforgettable, but Umbrella certainly didn't leave them with very good memories either. Perhaps this name is a complete irony for that world, but I hope it can truly serve as our umbrella of protection in this one. What do you think? Wang Yunxiao asked with a calm smile. Okay, the three nodded solemnly, their eyes no longer filled with a trace of hesitation, but with an infinite longing for the future. Then, Umbrella Corporation's future technological development will be handed over to Charles, Wang Yunxiao said earnestly to Charles. Of course. But, boss, what will be Umbrella's core areas of focus? Charles naturally agreed. This was his responsibility, otherwise, why would Wang Yunxiao have chosen him in the first place? But at the same time, he didn't forget to ask the question that concerned the three of them the most. Biology, medicine, and electronic communications, those three fields, Wang Yunxiao pondered for a moment before finally making his decision. To be frank, with the support of the entire Resident Evil universe, their scientific research and technology were decades ahead of their time. So, no matter which one Wang Yunxiao chose, there would be no problem. And he naturally had his reasons for making this choice. Besides viruses, Umbrella's core technologies lay in biology and medicine. However, due to the limitations of the times, Wang Yunxiao didn't want to produce overly advanced research results. Therefore, these two areas would be difficult to develop quickly, nor would they generate significant capital in the short term. Therefore, electronic communications was the perfect supplement. Wang Yunxiao was well aware of the enormous market potential of mobile communications and even the internet in the future. As for research and technology, not to mention that Umbrella Corporation was already well established in this field, not to mention the presence of the Red Queen and the White Queen. As for why Wang Yunxiao didn't choose Umbrella Corporation's core area of viruses, he had already made the decision back in Resident Evil to absolutely not touch this taboo in the Marvel Universe. He didn't want this world to become a bio-apocalypse, not even the slightest possibility. Okay, Charles nodded lightly, not entirely surprised by Wang Yunxiao's decision. Honestly, while he was an expert in viruses, it was precisely because of this that he understood their dangers better than anyone else. Lane and Ada Wang exchanged a glance, both pleased with Wang Yunxiao's choice. They shared a deep abhorrence of viruses. But, Lane, don't sit idle either. Although company management isn't your forte, we need our own armed forces. You'll be in charge of that, Wang Yunxiao thought for a moment before addressing Lane. No problem, Lane, naturally, wasn't one for quatrains. She knew full well that this was Wang Yunxiao's special favor, not wanting her to feel left out. After all, as the king of spies, how could Ada Wang not be adept at armed forces? The group then discussed the details of establishing Umbrella Corporation in detail. Everything is difficult at the beginning. Not only is choosing a location for the company difficult, but the various initial procedures, the company's first product, and promotional matters are all extremely complex. Most importantly, they needed to secure the initial capital. While Wang Yunxiao possessed an unlimited supply of hard currency like gold within his personal space, converting it into cash was a significant challenge. They certainly couldn't withdraw it all at once. Doing so would undoubtedly have a severe impact on the current financial market, potentially even triggering a financial crisis. Therefore, they needed to carefully consider the balance between the two. However, the exchange channels didn't require much concern. No matter which world it is, there's bound to be a black market. Ultimately, the group agreed that Wang Yunxiao would handle the gold exchange, as only he could freely carry such a large amount of gold. Ada Wang and Rain would handle the company's site selection and various paperwork. Charles would assist White Queen in developing mobile phones. Yes, Charles was assisting White Queen. After all, a person's energy is limited, and it's impossible to be proficient in every field. His strengths lay in biology. As for why the derivative Bai Hong was chosen, rather than the original Red Queen, it was because Wang Yunxiao only had Red Queen's source code. To develop her, he needed not only cutting-edge experts in the relevant fields, but also a true supercomputer capable of supporting her. Clearly, supercomputers of this era were inadequate. Even for White Queen, the computing power of a modern supercomputer was severely limited, let alone a mere ordinary computer. Although Wang Yunxiao had brought back the original computer that housed White Queen from the Resident Evil world, he genuinely didn't dare use it. The reason was simply that the mainframe's power consumption was terrifying. If Wang Yunxiao dared to use it openly, he would likely immediately attract the attention of the relevant authorities, perhaps even a visit. Wang Yunxiao didn't want to cause himself such unnecessary trouble. Perhaps, only after Umbrella Corporation was fully established and had its own base could the White Queen's mainframe be used openly. In fact, the concept of mobile phones dates back to the 1940s. In 1946, a laboratory successfully produced the first so-called mobile phone. However, its sheer size forced researchers to store it on a shelf in the lab, where it gradually faded into obscurity. Today, even those large mobile phones, despite countless modifications, are limited to large trucks. The most critical issue is the radio power. Current power consumption is 10 watts, but to be portable, it should be only 1 watt, with a maximum of 3 watts. In fact, most subsequent mobile phones have a maximum radio power of only 500 milliwatts. And this is not a big problem for Charles and the White Queen, who have mature skills. Please collect, subscribe, recommend and vote. Chapter 99: A Year in a Hurry. In just a few days, Wang Yunxiao had secured enough funds on the black market to fund the creation and initial development of Umbrella Corporation. In a capitalist society like the United States, with access to vast sums of money, everything became incredibly simple. Not only were the relevant procedures handled smoothly, but Ada Wong Yunxiao even secured a large building in central Manhattan to serve as Umbrella Corporation's headquarters. Manhattan, as New York's wealthiest borough, is also known as the economic center of the United States, and indeed the world, home to numerous renowned companies. As Umbrella Corporation aims to become a global powerhouse, it was a natural choice for its headquarters. However, a very interesting development occurred during this process. The building had already been targeted by a company, and negotiations had reached a crucial stage, when the two women suddenly intervened and snatched it away. And this company was not only familiar to Wang Yunxiao, but also to anyone familiar with the Marvel Universe, Osborn Biotech. Not bad. It was Osborn Biotech, founded by the infamous Osborn family, home to 2 generations of Green Goblins, Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn. While Osborn Biotech at this time wasn't the behemoth it would become, it was still one of the leading companies in the biological field. Now that they had been robbed by a nobody like the two women, they naturally wouldn't let it go. That very evening, a large group of men in black arrived. The result was self-evident: without even Wang Yunxiao's intervention, the two women easily dealt with him. Never once to suffer loss, the two women went straight to exact revenge that night. While they didn't actually kill anyone, they did give Amberson Osborn, the current patriarch of the Osborn family and Norman Osborn's father, a severe torment and terrified him. Amberson, of course, kept this incident secret, but he felt deeply ashamed, a fact deeply etched in his heart, and even passed on to every member of the Osborn family. Thus began the feud between the two. Furthermore, there was an inevitable competitive relationship between the two sides in the development field. Even without this incident, peaceful coexistence in the future would be impossible. But would Wang Yunxiao care? Not to mention the sheer magnitude of their power, even in terms of scientific research and technology, Umbrella, with its decades-long lead, was also overwhelmingly superior. With the relevant paperwork for the establishment of Umbrella Corporation complete and the headquarters building selected, Wang Yunxiao and his colleagues immediately set to work. The White Queen's mainframe could finally be used, though confidentiality remained, and it was being guarded by the two tyrants, Chad and Matt. Indeed, Wang Yunxiao had finally freed these two from his personal space. However, even though the White Queen could now operate at full capacity, developing a mobile phone in such a short time was impossible. Equipment, materials and the deployment of signal base stations were not something that could be accomplished overnight. Despite this, Umbrella could proceed with recruiting personnel and establishing various departments. For a while, Ada Wong and Lane were practically swamped. Wang Yunxiao, on the other hand, remained largely invisible, quietly serving as the mastermind behind the scenes. Even now, he preferred not to be in the public eye. Especially not by those with ulterior motives. Wang Yunxiao knew full well that with the Cold War imminent and the Vietnam War imminent, if he showed up at this moment, he'd be targeted by those with ulterior motives, and even more likely to be dragged into the conflict. Wouldn't it be better to just develop peacefully? Who wants to be in trouble for no reason? An outright refusal? That was out of the question. Umbrella Corporation was only a start-up, and Wang Yunxiao had no leverage to challenge the U.S. government. Didn't you see that Howard Stark Industries was inevitably tied to the U.S., working overtime to help them produce weapons? Of course, Howard's status also played a role. By this time, he, along with Colonel Phillips, Peggy Carter, and others, had established a Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Agency, building upon the Strategic Scientific Corps, later known as SHIELD. Despite this, The two women were furious at Wang Yunxiao's idleness while they worked themselves to death. They even refused to let him have sex, forcing him to live a life of asceticism. What else could he do? He felt helpless. Fortunately, with the establishment of various departments and the gradual normalization of Umbrella Corporation's operations, the two women could finally relax, and Wang Yunxiao's hard times finally came to an end. However, there was a problem. Umbrella Corporation hadn't taken any further action, nor had it released any new products. Even its core business direction had never been officially announced, which inevitably caused some anxiety among the company's employees, despite their consistent salaries. As time went on, not only they but also the outside world became increasingly curious about Umbrella. They had invested so much money in its founding, purchasing a headquarters in the heart of Manhattan, even going so far as to fund established companies like Osborne Biotech, yet there was still no news. Could it be that they simply had too much money to spend? This was clearly impossible. The more Umbrella's behavior became, the more curious the outside world became, eager to delve deeper, which in turn caused considerable trouble for Ada Wong. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, Umbrella had been established for over a year, yet still no movement. Putting aside the external scrutiny, even within the company, many people had resigned. Ada Wong didn't take it too seriously. She had already said what needed to be said, and what shouldn't be said couldn't be said. She could only leave it to them. Staff turnover was inevitable, but in a metropolis like New York, there was always a shortage of talent in all areas, as long as Umbrella could afford top-tier salaries. For now, simply keeping all departments running smoothly was enough. Moreover, Ada Wong was confident that once the mobile phone officially launched, Umbrella Corporation would shock the entire United States, and even the world. By then, what kind of talent would she not be able to recruit? And according to Charles's feedback, the world's first truly mobile phone would officially debut in no more than a month. Thanks to Zhang Zhang and Wang Jianghanyu for their guaranteed monthly passes. Here are today's 3 updates. Please bookmark, subscribe, recommend, and vote. Chapter 100 New Product Launch. That day, the Umbrella Building's exhibition hall, a room large enough to accommodate 1,000 people, was already packed. Media outlets, large and small, from New York and across the United States had gathered. 2 television stations with nationwide coverage were even present, their cameras already set up. Inside the exhibition hall, reporters from various media outlets were buzzing with discussion about what new products Umbrella would unveil at its upcoming product launch. Over a week ago, Umbrella had suddenly announced that it would hold a new product launch today. This news had caused quite a stir throughout New York and even the United States. The reason was simply that Umbrella was incredibly secretive. For a time, not only the media but also well-known corporations were taking notice. At 10 a.m., Ada Wong, CEO of Umbrella, calmly walked onto the booth, under the astonished gazes of the reporters. Today, she was dressed as always in a fiery red cheongsam, her stunning face and fair skin showcasing her peerless elegance. Click, 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 instantly, flashbulbs erupted as reporters clicked their cameras. Ada Wang's stunning beauty alone would have caused quite a stir upon hearing her report. Who could have imagined that the CEO of the ever-enigmatic Umbrella Corporation was such a stunning beauty? Well, beautiful women often draw the most attention. Bang, bang, Ada Wang smiled as she tapped the microphone twice, and the exhibition hall fell silent as if someone had suddenly paused. While the beauty was a feast for the eyes, they hadn't forgotten the primary purpose for coming today. First of all, thank you all for coming to Umbrella Corporation's new product launch. Ada Wang's first words were to express her gratitude to the reporters. Our Umbrella Corporation is about to release a new product, a mobile phone. Ada Wong then immediately unveiled the theme of the new product launch. The reporters were stunned at first, then erupted in astonishment. What had they heard? A mobile phone, right? Could it be that Umbrella Corporation had already conquered this technological barrier 20 years in advance? The concept of a mobile phone had been around for a long time, but due to technical difficulties, it had never been fully realized. It could only be used on large machinery like trucks, never truly for personal use. Some experts even stated that without over 20 years of research and development, it would be difficult to overcome this technological barrier. As you all know, Bell Labs created the first so-called mobile phone back in 1946. Unfortunately, it was too large to be practically used in our daily lives. Excuse me. President Ada, Has Umbrella Corporation really already achieved mobile phones? Suddenly, someone interrupted Ada Wong, their voice filled with distrust, even disdain. As the head reporter for the New York Daily News, he felt he had plenty of reason to be proud. Umbrella, despite its secrecy, had always maintained a low profile since its founding, with no groundbreaking products. Many believed the company would soon face bankruptcy, dissolution, and a disgraceful exit from Manhattan. And don't forget, it had also antagonized the established firm, Osborne Biotech. Of course. After years of research and development by our Umbrella technicians, and after overcoming countless technical challenges, we've finally achieved a true mobile phone. We prefer to call it a cell phone. Ada Wong remained unperturbed by the interruption, or the words filled with suspicion and disdain. She simply clapped her hands, and a model immediately emerged from the booth carrying a tray covered with a red cloth. Under the mixed gazes of the reporters, ranging from anticipation to shock and disbelief, Ada Wong lifted the red cloth from the trays, revealing two massive black devices, each the size of a narrow brick. Oh my god, what is this? It's so ugly, come on, what kind of aesthetic is that? I just decided it was cool. Is this a phone? It's so tiny, it's unbelievable, it can't be fake. Umbrella Corporation is holding such a grand product launch, they can't possibly be producing something fake. If this is real, it'll be a major event that will shock the entire United States, and even the world. Immediately, the exhibition hall erupted in a cacophony of discussion. Some commented on the appearance, some expressed disbelief, and some were deeply shocked. But regardless of the voices owners never took their eyes off the two phones on the tray. Friend, could you please give me a demonstration? Ada Wong smiled calmly, pleased with the crowd's response. But actions are worse than words, so she decided to demonstrate the phone's call function live and directly selected someone. And that person was none other than the New York Daily reporter who had just interrupted her. Of course, it's my honor, the New York Daily reporter nodded excitedly, his initial distrust, even disdain, long gone. Ada Wong raised her hand and picked up one of the phones. At her signal, the model walked towards the reporter, carrying the tray. Ding-ling-ling, as the New York Daily reporter picked up the other phone, a pleasant ringtone rang out. For a moment, the entire exhibition hall fell silent, everyone's eyes fixed on the phone, wishing they could take their place. Hello. Following the model's explanation, the New York Daily reporter pressed the answer button with trembling fingers, his voice also trembling. Hello, friend. Welcome to Umbrella's new product launch. The next moment, Ada Wong's friendly words came clearly from the phone. I'm honored. The New York Daily reporter was so excited that he stuttered. And please help promote our phone later, Ada Wong continued. Of course. I definitely will. The New York Daily reporter finally calmed down. Well, that's it, then. Goodbye, my journalist friend. Ada Wong ended the call. Good. The New York Daily reporter lifted the phone from his ear and reluctantly handed it back to the model. His gaze toward Ada Wong was filled with enthusiasm. It wasn't just him, everyone present shared the same gaze. They all knew the kind of storm this phone would stir once it officially launched. Please bookmark, subscribe, recommend, and vote. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.